Hello, SMITE fans, and welcome back to the SPL, the final set of the regular season, an important game for both of these teams moving in for the Camelot Kings and the Highland Ravens because, Gormai, if I'm not mistaken, winner of this set takes first seed in the division. We can take a look at the standings for these two squads. We just concluded with our Sixth Spearman and Elder Challenge game. That ties those two teams up perfectly across the board. Plus minus head-to-head set record as well between those two. And now here with the Camelot Kings and the Highland Ravens, could be seeing whichever one of these two wins out there, Gore, first seed on the line for these two teams.
Yeah, this one is a lot easier to break down than the last one because the last one has a lot of math behind it.
Yeah.
This one is very simply 7 would be bigger than 5.
Correct.
That's very easy.
That's easy.
Win for Ravens means that they have big number, which is great for me because sometimes when it gets to the minutia, man, sometimes your brain starts to fries. If it ends up with a Kings win and it's 6-4, the better news is the Kings already won against the Ravens earlier this phase, which means they'd have the head-to-head. They'd have a 2-0 overall head-to-head, whatever map difference that would mean. It doesn't really matter, although they won 2-0 last time, so it would be 4-1 at the worst for them. No matter what, they'd have the head-to-head, and that's the first one that goes in the tiebreaker, so it becomes a lot easier to deal with than looking at plus-minuses and digging deep into the game. So winner gets first. Very, very simple. And very important, right? Because, you had mentioned it. For this phase, this is the last set that you're going to be playing, but, a couple weeks we've got the playoffs. Playoffs is the bottom 3 of each division playing for seeding into Masters, right? So what are the top 2? If you're the Warriors, you're going to Masters. You don't have to worry about playoffs. We're not going to see you for a long time. If you're the Kings, that's the exact same thing you're looking for here. If you're the Ravens, that's the same thing you're looking for here, is a free trip, not having to play in a seeding tournament, not having to show off anymore, being able to sit back, practice, keep things in the pocket, show up at Masters feeling fresh. It also means, theoretically, right, the easier quote-unquote bracket. If I remember correctly for Masters, right, you'd be either playing the bottom seed of the playoffs or an SCC team if you are one of these top teams. So it means that you have a better chance, the better opportunity to push yourself as far into that tournament as you possibly can. And I think that's, again, what should be on the minds of both of these teams is get first seed, get to Masters, and then worry about the rest later.
Yeah, right now both these teams, as mentioned, playing for that opportunity to go immediately into Masters, not having to worry about any of the stuff that's going to happen. In a couple weeks, we'll get a nice little, almost, like a 1-month break before they even goes through there. But I want to talk about a couple of the players on these two teams, the consistencies that have come from these two teams. Yeah. A lot of that has come from their mid laners specifically. I want to talk a little bit about Big Man Tings. I want to talk a little bit about Venenu as well on the opposite side here. Yeah. I mean, Venenu has been playing, I think it was 10 to 11 different gods over the course of his time here. He's put out some impressive KDAs, Big Man Tings. A little bit less so as far as the diversity goes through for them. But all the while for these two teams, it has really come down to a battle of mids. The mids have been maybe two of the most consistent players on both of these teams.
Look, I know I can see him. We've got a camera feed of Vin right there. And
he looks clean.
Until he puts his jersey on, he looks like the kind of guy you would meet in a Swedish ski resort who is actually just an assassin. He's going to poison someone or he has a silenced pistol on him. That's what he's going for. Look, the man's been looking good both in and out of game. Same thing I think can be said for BMT. The two of them have been absolute menaces in mid lane. I think that when you're looking at this matchup, BMT has been a very consistent beacon for the Kings, and he has been over years at this point, right? In mid, he's got a wide, flexible god pool. He's got some weird, eclectic picks. He's very difficult to get to because of the front line around them. I think if you're going to harass the mid laner for the Kings, you've got to beat down Twig in between. Look, see, there he is. First off, finally get him up there. That dude, definitely an assassin at a ski resort. Yeah. And probably an assassin in the game. Not in the class, but like just the way he plays in general. I mean, you got to talk about Vin's Zeus as of late because of what he has been able to provide. I think his Zeus pick has been insane. But pretty much every other god he picks in mid lane has been impeccable to the point where they're forcing certain bans onto him, but he played the Agni in Game 2 after the Zeus was banned up against the Ferryman earlier this week. Looked amazing there. I think that this mid lane matchup is one that it's nothing short of a pleasure to watch because of what these two have been able to do.
Yeah, I mean, just like in real life, how if I see Venenu or maybe not see Venenu, I'm checking behind every single wall in game. Better throw some wards out there for him. But another player that's been really so pivotal for this Highland Ravens team, one player that has really slotted in well for this squad, has been their support. Hurriwind, his first full competitive year now, jumping into support at the SPL level. And it's been a great addition to the squad. And we're going to talk a little bit to Hurriwind. He's standing by for our pregame interview.
Were you going to ask me a question?
No, you're the question-asking guy.
Right, that's my... Sorry, I get flustered when I'm around you. You wanted me to bring it up. Actually, no, you didn't. This is me bringing it up on my own. Okay. You guys didn't want to talk about it.
Right.
Think back with me, if you will, to the kickoff tournament many moons ago. The Highland Ravens last picked overall into the Order Division. And now you're fighting for first place overall in the Order Division and an automatic buy into Masters. Does the team have a chip on their shoulder going into this set?
I wouldn't necessarily we have a chip on our shoulder. It's not something we talk about necessarily in that way. But it's
Do you
something
think
we
about
kind
it,
of
though?
remember. Yeah, it's something we kind of remember. Like, they put the Gladiators in the other group instead of putting us in their group. I think the Hounds were the ones that choose that. And our group has been really close. And obviously we're still playing for first seed, so we haven't secured it or anything like that. But obviously I think we kind of surpassed expectations from people in the league. I'm not sure still exactly why people thought we were going to be that bad. We got kind of toasted by the Warriors in the kickoff tournament. But we can see now that wasn't necessarily so bad.
Right.
Because they're just on a bit of a different level right now. But yeah, no, I think we're happy to kind of surpass those expectations and still kind of maybe a little bit of a chip on our shoulder that we got placed that low.
Do you feel like you personally have followed a similar mindset where last year was a big growing and changing year for you, changed roles around, moved into support, and now you're playing some really good support on a team that's fighting for first seed in one of the divisions? Do you feel like you personally have had a year of growth and surpassing your own expectations?
Yeah, it's a really good question, Dave. Without getting too much into it, last year was definitely a year of growth, a lot of struggle. I think it helped me kind of like get back to kind of a humble point where I kind of needed to learn again. I think I was a little complacent. And the role swap and everything, I mean, ultimately, I think I personally probably should have been a support from the beginning. Some people have kind of told me that over the years, and, it's kind of hard to swap roles. I took a year practicing this role. It was kind of a struggle, but now I'm here. I'm on an established team. We're doing well, so, I couldn't have written it better.
Well, and I don't know if the broadcast has seen it yet, but we certainly did. Ven looking sleek today. I'm hoping that he hasn't put the jersey on before we get a look. Yeah, is he still turtlenecked out of his mind production? If he is, I'd love to get a glimpse. But Ven is looking sleek here today. Oh yeah,
keep an eye out.
That's a guy. What is that?
I think Gore nailed it.
What does that tell you?
I think Gore nailed it. I think you just wouldn't want to run into that guy at the ski resort. You'd be looking at him out of the corner of your eye. You don't know what he's packing. I mean, I've got an idea. But
do you?
Yeah, right. For his picks today.
Oh, okay, understood. Right, and it's a lot of Agni. I don't know what else he's got up the sleeve.
That was weird. I heard like a laugh or something too.
Yeah, I don't know. I heard something from over the horizon. And here's the good news. I'm gonna have one more question for you. Allow the maniacal laughter to center themselves before we get there. Whoever that might have been. It's just the ghosts in the walls. Going up against the Kings, they have not been playing their best Smite here as of recently. Do you think you guys got something figured out to even the score and secure first seed against the Kings?
Yeah, they're definitely, I think, coming today with a better game plan. It's obviously a big day for them, too, to try to get first seed. So I think they're probably going to be better than they have been. Obviously, they've been on a bit of a downtrend, but we've kind of done our research. We've seen what works against them, and we're probably going to try to implement some of the strategies that other teams have tried.
Understood. It's an exciting one for first seed, a bye on to Masters. Hurriwind, always nice to talk to you. Back to the laughter on the desk.
No laughter here.
No laughter on this desk. Not one bit of laughter. It is completely professional here. We don't laugh ever. Yeah. When it comes to the desk. And it's no laughing matter for these two teams.
Damn it. I was literally going to laugh to say, me, I'm not the laughter guy.
And then you got me laughing. We already ruined it. We've already destroyed the bit at this point. But one thing at least here with this team against Hurriwind over there, we talk about the consistency of Hurriwind for this team. We talk about how well he's been able to stop for this team. One of the playmakers and world's MVPs. If we're talking one sport, we've got to talk about the one on the opposite side as well, Genetics over here for the Camelot Kings. This is a player, we saw signs of brilliance of him early on in his career. I mean, we think back to, the E United days where he's pulling out the horse strats and getting a god nerfed within 2 weeks of a buff even going through. And this man still continues to be a playmaker for this team, one of the hardest supports in general. You know what? I'm going to even say not even just supports. I'm going to say one of the hardest players maybe in the SMITE Pro League to properly ban out at this point, because so many teams have dedicated 5, 6, 7 bans essentially to this guy, and he still just pulls out pocket picks like this, whether it be things like Cerberus or at one point, even when Nox isn't something out there. Genetics is finding ways to continue to drag new gods into his god pool in order to make things work for his team.
Yeah, I'm just trying to count it up, and it's ridiculous. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and that's not even the end of the list. Bans, or different god bans that have been targeted towards Genetics, and that's assuming all of those are going towards support, right? He's played incredibly well. And he is a guy that is just very difficult to control. This year has been a little different, right? Last year, it feels like teams were, I'm going to call it wasting bans on him. Because if you went 5 deep, all in on Genetics, everybody on this team was going to get something incredibly strong. And then alongside everybody else getting something strong, like BMT being able to pick up something like his Merlin, Genetics was just going to play the 6th god on the list, and he was still going to clown you. He was still going to look better. He was still going to be better than you. And what's interesting is that the Kings, especially if you look at the last few sets, not going to be happy with their performances, right? And this is a team that when they are not happy with their performances, usually it turns into a really massive change. I mean, admittedly, the last time they were in a quote-unquote slump, they were in 3rd place, and they got a new carry. So that is definitely something that, they are not beyond changing the team. I don't know that the team needs changing, right? I saw some of this conversation in post-game threads, things like that. I think that's putting gauze over a paper cut, right? You don't need that much to cover it. Realistically, you are just looking at a team that just kind of has to figure things out. The other side has been doing well. And so, trying to re-solidify some of these moments where they are making these fumbles in-game and get that shot calling back under to what we've kind of come to expect from the team that won the World Championship so cleanly. And I think Genetics is a huge part of that. I think that this is a team that does incredibly well and a team that I'm expecting a lot of. I agree with you, though. Genetics is like a lightning rod when it comes down to bans, and I expect that he will maybe eat a few here. I honestly expect a few between the two supports to be important.
Yeah, I mean, Genetics is one of those few players where he has one good game on one specific god, and he might not ever see that god again for weeks, maybe even months at a time. I'm looking all the way back to his Maui performance at Worlds. He got it in, Game 1, Game 2 of their first set. Never got to see that god again. We'll see if the Camelot Kings as a whole can maybe find those picks that they need up against the Highland Ravens. So we jump into the picks and bans for game number 1 in our final set of the regular season. First seed on the line for both of these teams and their opportunity to move in towards Masters without having to deal with the playoffs in any way, shape, or form. Just get a nice little trip there. They'll join the Oni Warriors in waiting to see who their opponents are going to be moving in towards that week. Start off the bans, though. Camelot Kings.
I love that.
Going to take an immediate shot over at Hurriwind with that Umoja, and I got to agree with you, Gore. Looking over at Hurriwind, this has been a god that is just performing lights out for him. I would be surprised, and I've said it, and this was me, Gore, 2 weeks ago when we saw Hurriwind make the 5-man Umoja ult wall. When he made that play, I said, I hope I never see this player on that god again for everyone else's sake. And yet he still keeps getting this pick and still ends up winning with it.
And I was actually highlighting, I was going through different gods that are like keys to success for the Ravens. 100% win rate on Umoja.
Yeah.
6 games, 6 wins. Very easy for him. That's a very simple ban. Serket, I think, belongs up there. The Guan Yu is actually interesting to me specifically because looking at Guan Yu, Ravens have won 3 out of 7 games with him. And specifically when he's picked against the Kings, they've got a 6 out of 7 win rate against a Guan Yu. So, they're doing really well against that god, but the double healing is really where I think that equation comes in. All of a sudden, you start factoring Aphrodite into that conversation, and Aphrodite, while, again, the Kings have a good win rate against that god, it's about 50-50. You've also got a really good win rate for the Afro, 4 games out of 6, right? 66% of the time you're winning those if you're the Ravens. Hurry is one of the few players who I think we have talked about very highly on this pick. And so I think a couple of keys to success for and against the Kings here. And I think that their bans reflect pretty well things that we should have expected, and getting rid of the Guan Yu to take it away from specifically double healers makes sure that Aphrodite struggles maybe a little more.
For now, the Camelot Kings, Vamana. I just got flashbacks from the very last game that we watched Cormiser with what the Baskin and the Six Fairmen did. And I'm just thinking to myself, man, this could go one of 2 ways now for the Camelot Kings. This is Vamana completely wreaks havoc against the Highland Ravens, or it's one that the Highland Ravens have fought into a couple of times, specifically with this Zeus pickup by the Highland Ravens. It is Vamana, Hachi, and Hell for the first 3 of the Camelot Kings. Highland Ravens take Aphrodite, Bakasura, and Zeus very early in the draft, mind you, with these bottom 2 here by the Highland Ravens, which, I mean, we talked about with the Ravens when they pick the Zeus, it's typically 4th, 5th pick for them, something kind of after you've seen everything, but confidence in Venenu in this selection. And
he should have it, right? I mean, this phase, 3 games, 3 wins, looks really good. And honestly, if he doesn't pick it right there, it probably gets banned from him. He's been amazing on this pick. And when you look at this phase specifically, 12.5 KDA in those 3 games. Incredible numbers that he's able to put up. But it doesn't really stop there. I mean, even if you start to expand it even further beyond that, he's got 14 games, so 3 of those happening 14 across his career. Doesn't play the god a lot. He's got a 78.5% win rate.
Oh, that's also
and
good.
A 3.2 KDA. And when you're getting 3.2 across 14 games on an immobile mage, yeah, you're slamming some numbers. I think that this is a really good pickup for the Ravens. With the Aphrodite, I mean, we've seen it, and Trelly's talked about it. With me specifically, whenever I've been questioning the Afro, he said, well, you have to have carries that are nearby. And you have to have someone that if you're linked to them, they're getting something done. I see 2 carries nearby that you're going to be able to link to very easily on this squad. Bakasura and Zeus are going to put up a lot of damage numbers, going to put up a lot of kill numbers. And I think as far as top 3 go, I love the Ravens a little bit more. It feels very much to their team identity as strong. The Vamana is definitely one that I don't want to say leaves me wanting more, because like you said, we just saw what he can do, and the Kings have a pretty decent win rate on him, right? 5 out of 7 games. Twig, usually playing this god, looks impeccable in a lot of those moments. Hachi feels great. Hell feels great. Hell is the one that has me a little more timid. They've won the only game that they've played with Hell so far this phase, and it's something that has been banned against them a couple of times. It's something that they will ban more often than not. But it's just left a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth if it's literally anything that's not mid. If it goes to BMT, though, then we get a performance like what we saw at Apollo in Game 1. It's going to be insane damage, it's going to be insane healing, and I expect a lot out of it. So these bottom 2 picks, I think, are very important for what the Kings do.
King Arthur, the 4th pick now for the Highland Ravens. First one this phase, at least, for Haddix on this pick. With an Agni and a Giannis ban by the Ravens, and the Kings take away a couple of hunters. Shibalanke. Which, interesting enough, Shibalanke has been sneaking his way into the picks for some of these hunters. Namely, it's been maybe some of the older hunters within the league. Barracuda, Zapman, I think, has maybe had a couple of bans thrown in towards it. Saw it a little bit earlier on today with Cyclone Spin as well, so still seems to show at least a little bit of light for some of the older heads in Smite on that one, but also just one that Barracuda's been performing really well on. I think back to their set just earlier on, I believe it was last week when Barracuda went 3-0-4 to start a game within 10 minutes on Shibalanke, and that's pretty good, no matter the matchup you're going up into there, but
did still lose that game, though.
Yeah, did lose the game, but you probably still don't want to give Barracuda a 3-0-4 start on a god.
No.
So they won't do so. Cerberus being hovered by the Kings. This is one that Variety's picked a couple of times. Has worked out 50-50 for him, I believe. 1 win, 1 loss on there. And for a moment, we saw at least the Ishtar hover, which indicated that there could have been a potential double hunter for the Camelot Kings, but instead will be the Baba Yaga for BMT.
I don't mind this pick. I mean, look, Baba Yaga got safety, right? The Cauldron gets you out of there. Shield on Home Sweet Home, plus you're then just DPSing like crazy, so people tend to back away. As well as good damage output, right? That's what we've been seeing from it. Feels like a really big team fight, just comp for the Kings. You've got healing, you've got ranged physical damage from the Hachi, you've got disruption from Vamana and Cerberus, and you've got good ranged magical damage from a Baba Yaga that scales incredibly well. The longer this game goes, the better. That's the way the Kings like to play, and that's where they've been doing well. The downside is that the Ravens have been playing a much faster pace of game lately, and that might affect whether or not the Kings get to see this comp to its fruition. I think it could be really great if you can get to 25 minutes. Even if you're slightly behind at 25 minutes, I think this comp does pretty well. The longer the game goes, the better your damage is, the better you look, all in all, together, just bonuses for the Kings. The Ravens, on the other side, have a comp that if Bakasura and Zeus specifically can get off to a really good start, probably pick things up. King Arthur, we haven't seen a whole lot of. What we have seen hasn't been too fantastic. Maybe Haddix, well, actually, I trust Haddix out of anybody, really, to make him look really solid here. So Ravens have a draft with at least one unorthodox pick, one very Barracuda pick, and then 2 hyper carries alongside an Aphrodite. So I trust in the Ravens draft to do well. I think that they want Snowball and they want Peel. They want this Zeus to be ahead, because otherwise it starts to become a much more difficult game, right? Your beads, your Aegis are nice, your ult can self-peel in the terms of you kill them dead really quickly so they don't want to chase you, but then you're going to have to rely a lot on the Undying Love. And I think if you can make Hurry's life a little easier, that's the benefit. So you want to get ahead, want to try and steamroll the Kings as soon as you can.
So Barracuda 4. We always joke about how many games he has in this god, but...
It's because it's a lot.
Because it's 100, if I'm not mistaken, if it's currently updated now, 121 games that he has played on this Jingwei over the course of his career. The most of any single player god combination. The next highest is actually Vote at Rom, which he actually, I think, just hit 105
just went
this season. And then after that is adapting on Thor, 103 games.
Also just went over 100
Yeah, we just
season.
had those in these 2 seasons out here. And then the next highest after that one, the next potential that could even happen would be Barracuda on Hachiman, because after... Well, actually, I guess Mike, if he decides Fafnir wants to jump back into the meta at any point, but... Looking at these 2 comps, I mean, the Ravens, you mentioned, there's a lot of scaling for these guys towards the late game. If it does get there, you have those hyper carries. How about for the Camelot Kings, trying to fight into this, and is this one that can scale to the late game with this Baba, with this Hell, and even with this Vamana that we at least saw what was able to happen in previous games?
Oh yeah, I love their late game. I think the healing, the reset, based on what we've seen just today, I think it is there. The downside is that the Hell is going to be in the support role, which we've seen typically struggles a little bit early on, but you're up against an Afro, right? So theoretically, the pressure that you would be feeling from a Guardian, it's just not going to be there. There's still some hard CC, right? Afro's got the stun, Hell doesn't, but the damage output from Hell early on should make up for it, and then the Vamana and the Cerberus late game will make up for any lack of CC.
And the final set of the regular season, it's game number 1 for the battle for first seed. Camelot Kings, Highland Ravens starts right now.
Trelly, in years have passed, we've come to the end of phases, and our final days have been silly. We've had some matchups that have been taken maybe less seriously than others, but not this one. This one, hyper important. And it's simple. All of the opportunities for teams to move up and down in the standings, well, now it simplifies. The chat pretty split on it as well. 51% for the Highland Ravens, 49% for the Camelot Kings.
That's the closest I've seen.
That's the closest I've seen as well. Highland Ravens have the 1-game advantage, but it doesn't matter. Camelot Kings, you win this one. They've beaten the Ravens twice this phase, and they will be in sole possession of first place in the Order Division. Remember what's important there. First place in both the divisions. They skip playoffs in a couple weeks. They go right to Masters as one of the top couple of seeds. And you're able to have an easier path through to the finals at that event. So there is a lot to play for here. Not only another weekend of having to play games, but an extra weekend of practice for the other squad, and maybe a break depending on how your team is feeling. And I think 51-49 maybe is just about right for these 2 teams.
I'd say so. I mean, if you saw the picks and bans, after watching the previous set, you might be giving a little bit more weight towards the Camelot King just because of Baskin's performance on this Vamana. Captain Twig has also been lights out on this pick. But the Highland Ravens news was coming, right? They had to know the Vamana was a possibility to try and deal with. And they've got some decent answers, most of which is just Ven. I mean, Ven is my answer in most cases because of the amount of damage Zeus can do.
Well, Vamana hasn't been completely unstoppable. I mean, it's been very good. Don't get me wrong. I want to make sure that's out there. Vamana has been very, very good across the league. Has not been an automatic win button in the same way that it was for Baskin in just the previous game.
Definitely not.
But has been a great advantage for teams to have. And Captain Twig feels like, some picks here or there just haven't quite been working out, where the Vamana has been. It's been the answer for Captain Twig when sets go a bit sideways. With that, I levy a few higher expectations against Captain Twig here in game number 1. You then maybe raise some expectations around Ven and some hopes to see him deal with this Vamana.
Yep.
But really the composition of the Highland Ravens, Trelly, you get this Aphrodite, and Hurriwind, one of the players in the league, I think has been playing these mage supports pretty well. Got some options to link up to. Scream might be it later on. Give this Bakasura the avenue to roll forward. He might be doing the same exact thing the Vamana's doing, just on the other side of the fight.
I would think Hurriwind has one job in this game, and it is get to Ven and just be kissed to him for the rest of the game. Again, I say Ven has to deal with Captain Twig. The same is true for the Camelot Kings. Vamana just solos Zeus at any given moment of the game when you get your build online, but that's sort of the issue. You're not in a 1v1 versus Zeus. Your team is there, and he does the AoE damage to make sure that he stays alive. He peels himself with Lightning Storm. That's the way Ven likes to play. His KD on this character has always been disgusting because he's able to stay safe in the backline, and his frontliners can facilitate that play style. If Captain Twig's able to find him by himself in the jungle, yeah, that's going to be a quick fight. But if you got the peel, if you have Undying Love from Hurriwind on top of a shell, on top of a Wing Shard, that's where things get a little bit dodgy. And remember, we did just watch a solo lane Vamana, different from carry. Full damage, maybe a Foul Links has been built into the build, but it's been a lot of attack speed. Crit sort of fell out of the meta. It's just full on as much attack speed and movement speed as you can.
Yep.
You die a lot faster when you're building that sort of way. So I think Barracuda might also have something to do with trying to burn through this Vamana.
Well, the Jingwei, as the Desk talked about, the most played player god combination in SMITE Pro League history. 120-something games. I wonder if the guy knows how to play this pick or not, you know? Really raises the question in my mind. I have some confidence that he can. But Jingwei hasn't necessarily been the pick in the current meta. But certainly an option if crit is on the mind of any of the players. Maybe a gank is on the mind of Scream here. Genetics slightly low on mana. Level 5 is hit by this Bakasura. He will slither on into lane undetected. Blinks forward. Gets his ultimate down onto Genetics, and Genetics left running with no mana, and that's a first blood for the Highland Ravens here in Game 1, and it goes to Barracuda.
That's as easy as it gets. I mean, a rare misplay there from the Camelot Kings. No ward vision on the left side of the map. Genetics out of mana entirely, and still steps forward, try and clear the way. Because of that, you give not only an assist over to Hurriwind and Scream, but you get first blood over to the Jingwei. That pretty much guarantees that Bear's going to be just fine going even in lane, saying, hey, I'm not going to step up. I'm going to sit underneath my tower, you know, look for aggressive invades when I can, but so safe on this Jingwei. They're probably not under too much pressure, especially. I can't imagine a Vamana gank ever going well, right? You blink in, you try and hit the slow. Here's another Vamana gank, but Ven does have the Aegis. That should be enough. No way this dive works.
We're tower diving, and it works in so far as a one-for-one trade, but it might get worse. Scream tossed aside by Home Sweet Home. And that'll keep the trade at 1-for-1. I guess it worked, right? You got a kill on the Ven, but you traded out your jungle.
Yeah, I didn't account for Big Man Tings being clutch, because Big Man Tings got the kill. He confirmed it. Twig was never confirming that kill. There was no way that he had the dive. It was always going to be a trade at the very least, because Vamana just, again, with this build, you don't have the tank stat to try and survive. But Tings has good damage, and Ven, maybe Aegis a little bit early. Probably could have saved it for the actual tower dive portion of that gank. But either way, the Baba Yaga's going to be a threat. And I talked about the Vamana dealing with Zeus. Baba Yaga's got some good range, certainly can as well. It's just Home Sweet Home. That's a good answer to it in Lightning Storm. You know, it's a large target that cannot Aegis, and Scream knows.
Ooh.
Twig's got no ultimate.
That's right, Twig, no ult, and that means a stun from Haddix. And this was read by the Highland Ravens so well. Scream and Haddix both stole the blue buff while Captain Twig rotated all the way through the jungle to the other blue buff. And man, this side of the jungle now just being stolen away from Captain Twig. The early portion of this game has gotten away from the Camelot Kings just a bit. Remember, the one kill they've got was a trade over in mid. Other than that, it's been Scream all over the map. A couple kills on right, an assist or two over on left. They've built up a decent little lead, one-level lead for Scream in the jungle on this Bakasura, who's off to a great start.
Certainly is. Quick farm. It's the name of the game here for the Baka. You can see that, you know, Captain Twig's trying to keep up with that farm. He is also going the Golden Blade. It just takes a bit. When you get caught out twice now, once of your own accord, you're diving a tower. The second time, Screamer said, hey, wait, this guy just ulted, right? All right, cool. Show up if you can. And Haddix makes a great rotation, finds the stun. A little bit of aggression towards Barracuda, but Captain Twig's more so looking for farm. Again, with airstrike available, just doesn't seem worth your while to try and gank this Jingwei. But Genetics and Yarkor have plenty of healing, plenty of sustain, and they are going to put some pressure just towards duo lane. See what they can do towards this Gold Fury sometime soon. I like the aggression, though, especially since, you know, Scream has been in the right place at the right time. You know, he just catches out Twig. He's got some ward vision down. He's got 2 wards in hand, so definitely trying to find 1v1s, isolated 1v1s in the jungle. That is where Baka excels in the early game. The slow, the cripple, the attack speed. All good things. Did step over a ward, though, so the Camelot Kings know exactly where Scream is for the time being. And they're not going to step towards that shield buff.
Highland Ravens able to keep this pace. It'll be something that has been happening to the Camelot Kings a decent bit over the last few weeks. Remember the Kings? I mean, and the Ravens early in this phase, but it was really the Kings who were the front runners for a little while. They were undefeated alongside the Oni Warriors for a good bit of time. Started to drop a set or two. Ravens started to add a set or two, and it's been a lot of this for the Highland Ravens. A lot of scream and a lot of killing, and another for the Highland Ravens, a second for the jungler. And it was so much damage onto a second, Yark had to get onto his horse and gallop away. Everywhere Scream goes turns to kills here in game 1.
Yeah, but now Scream trying to go for a green buff in vain. Tings does have a decent steal attempt, but won't be able to outconfirm eat minion. Now let's see the DPS towards this Fury. It looks like Yark's the only one who could walk up, and even he does not want to step towards that Fury. So the Highland Ravens 4-1 and a pre-10-minute Gold Fury in their favor.
Speedy.
All off the back of this aggression from Scream. That doesn't happen unless he, number 1, forces the ultimate from Yark, or 2, finds another gank on the Genetics. Looks like Ven might lose his red buff for the process, but I think that's a trade he's willing to take.
Yeah, I'm sure he does every day of the week. That red buff will bring Captain Twig up to level 9. Other than that, he'd been a level behind Scream. Suppose Twig's best option is just try to farm up as best as he can right now. He's been outpaced by this Bakasura. Luckily over in mid, and this is what's happened a bit for the Camelot Kings recently. Big man Tings still doing just fine, keeping pace in farm, has the kill. The Baba Yaga will stack things up quite nicely. The Charon's coin feels like it hasn't been built much, maybe in slower fighting games, but has still seen decent bit of play over in mid. Camelot Kings, they got to be on high alert now. Ward coverage over on the purple buff side of the Ravens jungle. Opportunities, though, for Scream to slither his way back on over to left. Maybe if Genetics is overextended.
Certainly does. Interesting build here from Hurriwind. The Cannoneers, Curus, that's all well and good. We've seen that time and time again. It's going to help you with the clear, but into the Stone of Binding. Looks like it wants to do a little bit more damage here on the Aphrodite. So that crowd control, that extra shred, can't help out, especially when your sole purpose as a support is to just enhance your team. That is what Aphro provides. You'll be a little bit less tanky, but so far, I don't think Hurriwind's been the target of any sort of aggression here from the Camelot Kings. Maybe from Genetics, these supports just trading blows, but not really looking to dive the Aphro anytime soon. And Ben has been largely left alone. Not something I expected. This duo lane sticking around, Hurriwind and Bara, sort of attached at the hip. I expected this to translate into a Ven and Hurry show, which it looks like it's going to now since the Pyromancer is available. And here comes a teleport and Haddix. He's going to join the party. This is a Pyromancer that the Highland Ravens want.
Whoa, that's a blink from Scream, but good damage traded back by Big Man Tings. How much can Haddix zone? Genetics will lose half of his HP on his way into the fight. Haddix loses a bit, but so does Scream. Now it's been turned around onto Variety, and Variety burned through. Lightning Storm plus Haddix plus Scream. That's an equation for a kill for the Highland Ravens, and seemingly a Pyromancer as well. It's the first Pyro of the game in both neutral objectives in the first 10 minutes, and another kill to the Highland Ravens.
Yep, Haddix was a good menace there, just zoning, making sure that the Camelot Kings had to back up. Not to mention the Zeus damage that we've talked so much about. This is a pick that really only Ven is playing, but I guess he's the only one who's able to pilot it like this. Stay safe. Stay in a good position, drop that Lightning Storm, and get great detonate value. Yarkor didn't rotate out of lane. He started pushing over on the left side of the map, which Barracuda, of course, tried to fly over and help with the Pyro. So because of that, Tier 1 tower almost drops down. But you don't get gold for almost, Dave. And the Highland Ravens do end up pushing down the Tier 1 over on right. This is a breakneck pace. Very quick. An objective spawns in. The Ravens are there. They have an opportunity to find aggression. They're going to look for it, especially right before an objective gets pulled. And all the while, Primal Fury is about to spawn back in. I mean, there's not going to be any breathing room here for the Camelot Kings. If they just want to stop and farm, they're going to be giving up another Fury in favor of the Highland Ravens here shortly.
I mean, this is the type of pace that the Oni Warriors have been setting. Baron Genetics will trade some damage, but the healing from Genetics, call it slight advantage to the Camelot King support. The arc over here on the left side, but again, hard-pressed to really gank successfully at Jingwei. It would be a great tower to trade back for the Kings. Anything to get a bit of extra gold spooled up for your team in a pace of match that has totally gone the other direction from you. And in a pace of match that only a couple of teams have really been able to set so far here in Season 10 of the SMITE Pro League. Primal Fury spawns up. Highland Ravens, you imagine they'll be right on time. You imagine Scream will be leading the charge, as he has. Blink is up in 5 seconds. Might not need it because he's got an ult right for Genetics, but this time, not the support of the team. Maybe a bit of team fight utility now off the board.
Because the rotation came through, Captain Twig was enough of a threat to make sure Scream couldn't just free cast there onto Genetics, and it might be the Camelot Kings who feel like they can step forward here. They get one ultimate down for none, and now it looks like Haddix is still going to blink forward?
This King Arthur, it's looked good in the right hands this year, and it's starting off the fight for the Highland Ravens. That said, a Stygian Torment brings the King Arthur right back, and there's so much CC, but not enough. Haddix will live on the other side of the fight, and a Lightning Storm from Ven forces all the healing, all the sustain from Genetics. Teams trading out damage, but remain 5v5.
Still a threat, though. Grouping up with a Chain Lightning like that is going to be scary, even if you get near the theory. There's so much damage coming from Venenu that it looks like the Camelot Kings, despite getting some good trades and some health bars, they're not going to be able to step forward for this Fury. They're going to have to stay back, and it's actually the Ravens who want to siege forward. Variety was able to reset. He's full HP now, and he jumps backwards. He's going to be able to get Barracuda.
Well, Scream has gone to farm the jungle instead of stick with his team and fight. Barracuda left alone as his dual lane partner, Hurriwind, desperately clinging to life. Undying Love slows down the engagement, but watch out, Scream on the other side of this Fury pit might have an opening into one of these low health carries. Could be a big moment for the Highland Ravens jungler, but it's the Kings jungler trying to continue the fight. Scream has joined the back line, but Captain Twig dashes away once more. Variety leaps away yet again, but Ven's got Detonate, and you can't dodge that. And there's still rotation potential. Yark, solo. Does Haddix have range? Of course he does. Then there's a Primal Fury awaiting the Ravens.
Haddix hits those. He cannot miss. Lightning Storm goes down, and the Highland Ravens are able to grab the Primal Fury after a massive fight. I mean, it took a while, and of course the Camelot Kings were able to find some success, but not enough. I thought Scream rotating over to the right, trying to push the tower, may have been the end there for the Highland Ravens' attempt at grabbing that objective. But it looks like the Ravens were able to stall long enough. Haddix had some great CC, and Scream was able to rotate back into that fight, get 2 regurgitates off, and it was the second one that ends up counting. Ben is able to pick up 1 kill, and Haddix on the second. And now Pyromancer's back up. It's just been, it's relentless.
And this is what the Kings of old have done to their opponents, where it's every single objective they're on time. Now, the Kings showed up for this last Primal Fury. That really drew it out just a bit longer, but the Highland Ravens really Screams pathing. I wondered if Barracuda dying early in that fight was going to be costly, and it was for Barracuda, was not for the rest of the Highland Ravens. Kings now have decisions to be made. You're 5,000 gold down at 15 minutes. Are you going to fight over a Pyro? Is it worth it if you lose another team fight? Just how out of control could this game get? The Bakasura, the backline dive for one of these 2 junglers already online. The other has fallen 2 levels behind. But Bladed Boomerang, nice item completion for Captain Twig and a little power spike. 2 runic bombs in the back pocket of the Ravens. Call it 2K burst damage on the next big objective.
Seems like we might finally have some breathing room here to discuss just what a breakneck pace. Again, the Highland Ravens have been able to set here. The Camelot Kings show up. They are not just rolling over and giving over objectives like we've seen time and time again. They have been able to try and fight. The sustain that Genetics is providing has been very impactful of just keeping the Camelot Kings around with a low health bar. That is interesting. Scream always goes tier 2 Odibo. Rarely finishes it. That is something that he does not like to do often. Big man Tings, the detonate. Boop. Goodbye. Venenu is a menace on this Zeus. Just cannot stop. And that's a Fire Giant call for the Highland Ravens.
That is turtleneck diff for the Highland Ravens. 3, 1, and 2 on the Zeus. And a Fire Giant pull hand delivered to the rest of his team. Now Barracuda's on left. He's got Captain Twig shoving down a tier 2 tower. And so it's steal potential, and that's it for the Camelot Kings. This is a moment where this game either gets delayed or the Highland Ravens fully grasped control. Fire Giants low and confirmed by the Ravens. 1 runic bomb used and 1 FG taken. You've lost a tier 2 over on left. You might add a kill on a variety. You will, and it's a 4th for Ven. It's an easy, clear, worth it play for the Highland Ravens.
Yep, the Camelot Kings grab the tier 2 over on left. Barracuda does not want to forfeit his life or his Fire Giant buff to try and defend that tower. But now the Highland Ravens will be able to grab one of their own as Barra can push up mid and try and get some extra farm. He's fallen a bit behind, sitting over in that lane, only level 14. In comparison to Yark, doesn't look too bad, but in comparison to his own team, Scream and Van, 17 here. Plenty of farm, only 17 minutes into the game. So Bear might want to split push for a bit. He's going to group up with the squad. Probably knock the last bit of towers down in mid and on the left side of the map. And despite the fact that the Ravens are very much ahead and have been controlling the pace of this game, Phoenixes still look scary. I mean, Hurriwind is not that tanky. Haddix wants to be able to blink in, so he doesn't want to be put in combat until the Phoenix Siege begins. So I'm thinking towers and Oni Fury, probably on the minds here of the Highland Ravens. The question then becomes, are the Camelot Kings going to group up and defend? Well, I'd watch their positioning. They're on the opposite side of the map.
Yep, they're going to just try to get the towers that they can manage and defend maybe a Phoenix here in just a moment. You got 1 runic bomb still if you're the Ravens. You're going to have another opportunity for one in about a minute and a half. Man, there's just been no great answer for this Aphrodite-Zeus combo. Feels like Scream has been just fine, but I guess we're having a conversation, Trelly, around Zeus, and this has been Zeus of past. Might be another one here for the Highland Ravens. They're tower diving Captain Twig. That's one way to deal with the Vamana. 3rd death of the game, and now 3 levels behind for Captain Twig. A simple dive for Scream and Haddix might actually result in a bit more than just the tier 2 in mid. No longer a jungler for 30 seconds. Looks like Runic Bomb was used and maybe dealt with by the Kings. So now maybe reset for the Highland Ravens. Back to the Oni Fury.
It's hard to believe that that is the same god, that Vamana we just watched. That,
you know?
I mean, it's just the...
I'm not used to seeing the Vamana thing done to the Vamana.
The duality of Vamana is, hey, if you're ahead, you look real good. If you're behind, you are just a bigger target that dies a little bit slower than anyone else. Scream doesn't care if you use Colossal Fury as long as Haddix is there with the CC. I mean, he's got the kin size, the Odysseus bow, probably going to go back and upgrade a starter item here. This Bach is a menace. It doesn't look like he's going to stop anytime soon. You said it. Ven is kissed, or Hurriwind is kissed to Ven and no one else. This Zeus is the protector, and you stick around him, say, hey, we're going to make sure that you do all the damage. All the while, Scream says, I don't need any help. I'm 3-0.
Yep.
I'm not dying anytime soon. I've got my relics available. Who's gonna fight him? I don't know. There isn't an answer at the moment. Big Man Tings has some solid burst, but that's from a distance. You let Baka close that gap, and he doesn't want to be involved in that 1v1 as much as anyone else.
I mean, Twig is woefully far behind 3 levels. Variety is as well, level 16. Even behind Hurriwind, both those players at level 17 on the Aphrodite. Things have gotten out of hand here in Game 1, but also gotten out of hand a bit in Phase 1 for the Camelot Kings. A team that decimated every opponent they faced all throughout the SMITE World Championship. Looked good during the kickoff tournament, looked great during the early portion of Phase 1. Just hasn't been able to find that momentum here recently. 20-minute mark and second Fire Giant of the game now on the table. Runic Bomb is there for the Highland Ravens. Camelot Kings, I think, hard-pressed to step out and defend this. Much easier to stand around one of your Phoenixes and see if you can defend things from there. At least there's no looming threat of Scream
I was going to say,
suddenly blinking on you and regurgitating.
Twig is wild for this.
The rest of the team is starting to move forward. That's probably why Scream...
Yeah, Scream recognizes there's no... Like, after what I just did to you, someone's in the jungle. Like, there's no way Captain Twig's this confident.
They're not going to be at Fire Giant because look at the ward coverage for the Highland Ravens. Yep. The entirety of the jungle, all the way back to the Phoenix line, maybe just by the red buff is not covered, but you know the Kings aren't there. Got to be somewhere over on left. That's smart from Scream, just to delay the wave and maybe defend against a potential Phoenix siege from the Kings while this Fire Giant goes down. But it'll be second FG of the game for the Highland Ravens. And they've now got full duration, full gold spent, and a lot of time to work down the birds.
You certainly do. To the right side of the map they go. I was going to say this would be interesting. Not the Phoenix most teams tend to go for first, and the Highland Ravens also will not. They're going to head back to base, push up left Definitely the smartest pick in that regard. Barracuda, though. He went with the Odibo as well. I was curious. Yeah, he's just going to go full shred, so not even going to throw a crit item in at the end of the build. He just wants to be safe on the Jingwei and then provide that amount of shred that we know from these typical ADC builds that are currently in the meta. So it's going to be difficult to do a 5-5 split here if you're just trying to fight in that left side of the map. I do think that Scream and Haddix probably take it up mid and feel a lot more confident in that 2v2. Like, there's no way Captain Twig's by himself, but maybe you send Captain Twig in Variety and you just let Big Man Tings try and clear out the wave over on the left side of the map. The Highland Ravens are doing a great job of, number one, checking their corners, making sure no ambush is set up for them, which of course not. The Camelot Kings are not going to leave Phoenix. But number two, keeping every single wave pushed up just to make sure that they've got avenues to go in on any one of these lanes. I mean, all three are a possibility. It's a 3-1-1 for now, but let's be honest, Haddix isn't getting any Phoenix anytime soon, so Scream's going to group up mid and see what they can get accomplished in a 3-2.
Twig starting to catch up in experience, only one level behind Scream now. Does not have the starter item upgrade, but does have the tier 2 item 6 slotted. Call it a couple thousand gold behind, which is impactful. Starter items feel great to get there. Where's the blink in? Here it is, and it's Haddix, but Haddix has only been met with damage. Runic Bomb looks like it got
God.
The left Phoenix down. Oh my God, is that Ben? It sure is. And in one fell swoop, he's deleted the carries. The Aegis is not even used, and the Ravens evaporate the Camelot Kings, the left side Phoenix, and they'll take game one.
Yeah, if you were curious, Big Man Tings died in the air. The trucker horn got pulled right when he tried to blast off away. Didn't even have time to use his ultimate or touch the ground. That's just a lot of damage. Great initiation.
Oh my God.
You called it out. Haddix blinked in. He starts to get shredded. And then Scream said, don't worry, we have another blink, and we can just drop Lightning Storm on these guys. There's not much to say. If you're the Camelot Kings, short memory. You try to forget about that game as quickly as it started. And I'm thinking the Vamana may not be as weighted as highly as that Zeus pick. It is deadly if you can't get to Ven.
Remember way back when Aegis, it was Beads or Aegis, you had to choose one or the other. You couldn't buy them at the same time. And we saw like Zeus and Vulcan doing things like that.
Yep.
Like, that's what it makes me think of, a moment where neither carry has the time nor the ability to use their Aegis because they're just insta-gibbed by a Zeus. There was no great answer to the Zeus because you're thinking you just dive the Zeus. He's immobile. No, there was an Aphrodite waiting there the entire time. Again, now look, the Oni Warriors, they've won their 13 straight. They're not even playing in this set, but this is the pace of game that has made them such a difficult team to deal with. Just the willingness to fight forever and always, and then turn that into objectives. It's what the Ravens do here in game one. It's what the Camelot Kings need to find an answer to in game two if they want to contest for first seed. Ravens 1 game away from locking in first place for phase number 1. See what happens in game 2 up next.
What's up, SMITE fans? It's Trelly here, and the SPL playoffs are just around the corner. June 1st through June 4th, mark your calendars. The top team from each division automatically qualifies to Masters. That leaves us with 6 teams left. They'll play each other in a double elimination bracket that determines seeding going into Masters. 2 best-of-5s every day, 4 days, all live for you to see on twitch.tv/SmiteGame, and we can't wait to see you there.
Hello and welcome back to the SPL. Game number 1 between the Camelot Kings and the Highland Ravens, and the battle for first goes over to the Highland Ravens. And as we start approaching the playoffs and start getting ready for Masters, if you want to make sure to hype up your teams and show your support, then what better way than to pick up a jersey for one of your favorite teams, brought to us by our good friends over at Skulls. You too can have your own Highland Ravens, Camelot Kings, Styx, Ferryman, whatever team that you represent. You can pick up a jersey, a hoodie, or a t-shirt, and even more over at shop.hi-rezstudios.com/SPL. You can pick up even some of the, I think our former last year's SMITE Pro Summer Master shirt, I think, was on there at one point as well. All kinds of great stuff over at the hi-rezstudios.com/SPL. Thank you once again to Skulls for joining us in Season 10 of the SPL. And Gore, game number 1 felt pretty simple for the Highland Ravens. You get a small bit of a lead. Venenu sure got towered over a little bit early on by Captain Twig, but every single team fight that we keep looking back to, Venenu's able to sit in the back line, kind of free cast, Scream's able to W key up along with the rest of the frontliners, and it just felt like the back line of the Highland Raven was completely unfazed throughout this game.
Yeah, there was even a point we were watching the highlights at the very end, and you see Variety get to Venenu, caused the trouble, gets on the Zeus, picks up the Zeus, throws the Zeus back towards, nobody's there. He didn't throw it towards anybody. There was nobody to back him up. And it's just little moments like that where you're just kind of like, if they were on a different page, what was the call? And I think it's actually moments like this. I will say you have to give credit. It actually was exactly this moment off to the side. Unfortunately for Variety, he ends up dying there. I have to give credit where credit's due. This King Arthur looked insane. Do I think this means King Arthur is insane? Probably not. I think Haddix is just really insane, and it works out well for him here, and he plays it well, right? And I think that that's something that we might see a little more often from him. Maybe it has a home in certain matchups. But I loved it here. Really good peel, really good setup, really good. I mean, look at the zone that is being created just by him. And then you get the hyper carries. If your Zeus is sitting this far back, able to throw down damage like it's nothing, and not only are both relics still up, but there's not, like, his health bar's not moving. Nothing's happening over here. I think that you're showcasing that he's doing a great job. Hurry has to be mentioned because of that, right? Yes, the carries look really good. Yes, Vin only dies once throughout that game, 6-1 and 4. Scream goes undying. Everybody, actually, other than Barra, also goes undying. It's because of this Aphrodite. This Aphrodite's keeping him going. For Haddix, he's super tanky. For Hurry, he's got good positioning. But for everybody else, Afro is keeping them alive, and Haddix on this King Arthur is keeping them zoned out. It is just well played from top to bottom. The Ravens just, I mean, that was just team top to bottom diff. That's what breaks that one down.
Man, Barracuda kind of got to coast in that game. He didn't even do 6,000 player damage.
He only did 400 more.
Yeah, he only did 400 more than Hurriwind, who's
That's like
building
2 autos.
Full tank on Afro. He's full build at this point on a Jingwei. Literally, maybe even with just 1 auto would have been able to get him a difference at that point there, but I mean, you look at the opposite side. So there, Captain Twig only doing maybe 3,000-4,000 damage himself. The frontliners on the opposite side only doing a few thousand. I mean, even the carries weren't getting too much over on the side of Camelot King. Something's got to shift up here against the Highland Ravens. If the Camelot Kings want to find a winning game number 2, push it to game number 3, and have that opportunity to try and take first seed away from the Highland Ravens. Because remember, coming into the set, Highland Ravens are technically first seed. They're sitting 6-3 themselves. A win here would push them to that 7 guarantee, at least the first seed, because 7 bigger than 5, as you mentioned earlier on. Otherwise, drop down to a 6-4. But the Highland Ravens still kind of attempting to be able to eke that one out there. So, Camelot Kings got to make their fight back here, because they already do have that set win against the Highland Ravens previously in the season, which would give them the head-to-head advantage if they win, even with a potential 6-4 set tie here. So Camelot Kings got to make their step-ups, their adjustments. I wasn't honestly overly impressed with the Vamana this game. Really felt like this full damage style of Vamana isn't working out as well as the tank Vamana. You can't get to that backline as easily. You're not able to live nearly as long there. So maybe for the first time, at least this phase, Gore, if this Vamana does get picked up for the Kings, I wouldn't mind seeing this one go over into Variety's hands instead of Captain Twig's.
Yeah, I think we've, like, just in general, and it's worth probably deep diving into this phase, seeing Vamana jungle versus Vamana solo, but I really do think more recently the changes are what pushes him towards solo being a little bit better. I feel like he had his heyday in the jungle that looked really solid, and we just haven't gotten to see it. Then you go to last set, and you get a Vamana that's 9-1, 10-1, because he's just absolutely stomping them down, running them down. And it's not like Baskin had a really, like, solo lane-oriented build. He went 2 katanas. Like, he went, what was it, the Angry Lizard, whose name I'm forgetting. Phalanx, into a Golden Blade, into a Hazen Katana, right? And, like, Phalanx is giving you a lot there. But that's, I think, the where his damage came from. Once he finished that hasten, he just ran at the backline like it was nothing. He didn't care about anything. I feel like that's maybe some of the changes. I would have liked to see the Kings if they go for the Vamana to do that, but I don't mind this change up any either, right? If you're going to do something, get something that's going to provide you a lot more. Last time around, they banned the Yamoja. This time, they let it through. Circuit's also available, though. That's dangerous.
Yeah, Circuit is available. Yamoja does go to the Kings, and I was going to say, if the Yamoja doesn't get banned, which it didn't, it was Guan Yu, Afro, Vamana from the Kings. Ravens, they banned away Herc, Martikaros, and Horus. And that Yamoja slipping through, I was going to say, if you're the Camelot Kings, almost feels like you have to grab that one just because of the success that Hurriwind has had on the Yamoja in this phase so far. Now the Highland Ravens, their answer back. Okay, you got Yamoja, you got your healer. They'll take a hell for themselves. Now, whether that gets played in support or in mid, to be determined. As we'll have to kind of wait and see as the rest of the draft pans out for the Ravens, see where that one gets locked in. Because now we can say a little bit more after some confidence from Paul earlier on that Hell still has that viability in mid or over in the support role. But taking Scream back over onto the Bakasura after a pretty strong game number 1 from, I believe, 4 or 5-0 to end the game out there on the Baka. Yeah. Great performance by the Highland Ravens in game 1. No complaints here for their top 2.
Only thing I'm worried about is it does give the Serket over towards the Kings. Although Twig, I mean, look, Twig can play Serket, can play it well. When I think Twig, Serket is not at the top of that list, right? And that's kind of where the balancing is. It's not something that he can't play. It's just something that I don't see him play too often and that he doesn't pick up too often either. Admittedly, it could just go unpicked, even though it's been, touted. I'm going to use words from Kierme as a busted god, right? And where, in certain matchups, I think the jungler that gets it is going to pick it up. But against the Ravens, it's only been picked up 2 times. They banned it a few. Letting it through here, I think, is a testament to their knowledge of the players they're going up against. And very specifically seeing what we've seen out of the Kings. Only 1 Serket game so far this phase. And it was a win, but, you only have 1 of them. Wouldn't be surprised if it gets banned away here, though, right? If you're looking at limiting Twig, Hunbats obviously comes into the conversation. You have a lot of Twig-specific picks, I think, that deserve to be in that conversation. But Serket's just a meta pick that might need to be up there.
Yeah, I mean, Twig does have a history, at least, on the God. 38 games played over his career, 71% win rate on the God, so not out of his wheelhouse for gods to play there, but I think you're right to say things like
just go
Ratatoskr, Hunbats.
You could ban Rat here.
Those kind of ones. The Hebo has also been jumping up in priority for him as well, which could maybe be something that they opt towards here for the Camelot Kings. Highland Ravens, so they do start by banning away some Twig-specific gods.
Hey!
Hunbats and Ratatoskr, the first 2 named out by us, gets taken away. But the Camelot Kings, they're not going to let Veneno have a 4th game, or I guess I should say 5th game now, on the Zeus. That one gets banned away alongside with Thoth. And it's so wild to see those 2 banned, but it's just because those are 2 picks that Veneno has been dominating with when he gets his hands. Because I think the only other 2 players in the league even playing that Thoth has been, Pagon and Shinto at this point. So these are very targeted bans from the Camelot Kings.
And honestly, I think deserved. I mean, it's the same thing for the Ravens, right? Hunbats and Rat are just straight up Kings and specifically Twig picks, right? Trying to limit him down. He's gone Hebo, but if you're talking Hebo in the jungle, you're usually talking double Hunter, right? You want that physical damage from elsewhere. So, I mean, Hebo Agni's not necessarily unheard of, but it'd be a very, maybe too heavy-handed magical damage from the Kings at that point. You're relying on just the current and potentially what Variety picks up. So, wouldn't mind seeing them shift away from that, but that's where it gets really weird. And into the depths, because you scroll down after Hebo, all of a sudden there's, hey, Hunbats, there's Ratatoskr, and you gotta keep going before you find other jungles. I think their Poseidon may have been in the jungle. I can't even remember. Mercury is on that list, but this is one that I would like. I was wondering if we were going to see it. The question is, and I want to see what gets locked in alongside it. Tyr has been picked by the Kings a few times. But with the Nemesis, it's going to be solo. So it is Variety's pickup. I am still in Mifflin's book, but I think it's for the exact same reason, which is that we're just really, really old now.
I got into Smite because I saw Lassus's Tyr and then also in a random casual game experienced it firsthand. And that would solidify my love of Tyr jungle, also my hatred of going against the Tyr jungle.
Yeah, and honestly, it's exactly, I mean, I'm in the same boat, right? Like, it's well known, at least for the last, 4 years, after Paladins and getting back into Smite, that I just defaulted to support. I played support in Paladins. It just made sense. Or I guess at that point it was frontline very specifically because support was healers. There's some nuanced conversation over there that nobody cares about. What you're getting, what I got into was that frontline mentality, being the tank, being the one that's kind of leading it. Prior to that, at least in Season 2, I loved playing jungle. And I loved playing Tyr. In fact, most of the time, if it wasn't Tyr, I was playing Nuwa solo. So I had 2 modes. I was a very simple dude in Conquest. I really do like him there. I don't mind him in solo lane either. That's what we've been seeing. You get moments like Deathwalker's 4-man push. Those don't happen all the time with him. But Blink Fearless has changed so much. And with the adjustments that he just saw, the buffs he just saw to his ultimate, I'm thinking Tyr seems pretty good, right? I mean, you've got essentially what is a mobile Cataclysm. The Blink kind of built in. You can jump over a wall, get a small stun. A lot of opportunities for him. Cleanses on the other side might cause trouble for the Suns, definitely for the Fearlesses. And so the Hell gives that opportunity. And I feel like I've got to voice my distaste for Hell support again, just because I feel like just in general, what we've seen out of Hell and what we've seen from Hell in mid versus what we have seen from Hell in support, it feels so drastically different for the God. I mean, maybe it's going to be pilot difference, right? That's always going to be a factor into it. But the Ravens have only played the Hell once so far this phase. They lost with it. I think that there's definitely something to be said about that. And if I'm looking at frontline, unless this King Arthur and Hell pop off, I favor Yamoja and Tier, 10 times out of 10 in the Void. We just saw what Haddix can do on the King Arthur. The Void doesn't matter right now. All of a sudden, I'd still probably give it, odds in favor of the Kings for the frontline, but it's nowhere near as one-sided as I would think, because it's not the vacuum that you want to be in. Probably still 60-40, maybe 70-30, because I really like Yamoja Tier as a frontline, but the cleanses are going to cause trouble. And Haddix is nuts at King Arthur, apparently, so who knows?
Now, maybe granting a little bit of niceties over to the Highland Ravens, that Hell game was on Venenu and not on the support, so
yeah.
don't know what it looks like, at least in Hurriwind's hands yet. Haven't really seen a chance to really see what Hurriwind can do on this God, though I think you're right to say that in general the Hell support has kind of been struggling. The Hell in general.
Has Hell support won this week?
Hell support, well, I don't know about this week, but Awesome Jake is 5-0 on Hell support.
Yeah.
So we know that there are players
the
who
Warriors
can make this
don't
work.
count. Their numbers are too good.
In that case, we have 1 game on Aurora and 2 games for Mike that have won Hell support. And then Quig has actually won 3, and Genetics has won 1. So we do have some Hell support wins. It's a much more diverse.
Maybe just recency bias has me against it.
Yeah, it's a little bit more diverse than, say, Aphrodite, which up until Wrong You just played it, only had 3 players in the entire league who had been winning on Afro. So, Camelot Kings now, they've got to bunker down. They've got to be able to find this game win up against the Highland Ravens. Do you think with the composition that the Camelot Kings have in this game, Gore, up against what the Ravens have drafted, do you think that we could be seeing a game 3 with them?
Honestly, yes. I think that what I'm seeing right now out of the Kings is just insanely... I mean, like, Nemesis is maybe the one that's a little shaky, but it's a good twig pick. Frontline feels really solid. You've got great damage from Agni, great damage from Eternanos. I think as a team comp, it just fits together better.
Well, we'll have to see if the Camelot Kings can battle back, take us to game number 3, and potentially fight for that first seed still. But they've got to get through game number 2. To do that, we got to throw it over to Dave and Trelly.
We are on Order Division first seed point officially. The Highland Ravens steamroll the Camelot Kings in game 1. If they win game 2 here, they retain first seed in the Order Division and a bye straight to Masters. Camelot Kings with the win would send us to a game 3 with the same on the line. Now there's a slight increase in percentage from chat. It's 51-49 going into game 1. 54-46 though, Trelly. Going into game number 2 here with some forced composition changes for the Highland Ravens from the Camelot Kings.
And that's going to be a big difference maker. It's not like Morgan Le Fay has that same level of AoE that the Zeus had. You don't have an Aphrodite kissed you in this case. You don't have that immunity, but Captain Twig doesn't have the Vamana that can just stomp away. This time he's on the Nemesis, which I think is a good target to try and deal with Hurriwind. A lot of slows that Hell doesn't want to deal with. As well as Variety on the Tier, who I've been waiting for the influx of Tier. I think these buffs did do some great things. But Variety's been going to the Tier, and I haven't had that pop-off performance that I've been wanting to see from him. So I am curious as to how well this pick is able to do later on in the game, because in a matchup versus King Arthur, I can tell you it's miserable. It is not fun. He has so much knock-up immunity, a cripple to deal with your Fearlesses. He's just going to out-clear you, out-pressure you. And Barracuda takes a lot of damage here.
Goodness.
What's he even trading these autos for? It's
Whoa.
back up.
Whoa, Barra and Hurry, they were late to lane. Genetics and Yark triple pulled their buffs. Barracuda and Hurry did the back camps, the green, and then over to purple, and just took them a little bit longer to get over into lane. So that small bit of lane pressure built up into nearly a kill onto Barracuda from Genetics and Yark. Got to imagine Yamoja Cern feeling okay over in Duo Twigs. Level behind, but right on top of it. We'll dash away here. Nemesis Trelly, far from the overwhelming meta jungler here in Season 10, but still a very viable fallback for a lot of the junglers in the SPL.
Certainly is. Is going to have some decent mid pressure as well. Scream's been able to stay relatively healed up just by able to, eat minion, jump away, sort of repeat. I think Ven's been providing good poke, but Big Man Tinks knows, hey, at level 5, this matchup's going to change a bit. Agni, not the best clear early on. You really do need access to that ult, and once you get 3 meteors, then you're going to start pumping out damage numbers and clearing from a distance. The poke of Agni is very strong, but here comes Captain Twig. I was going to say, should be caught out. I mean, it should be at the very least called out from mid, saying, hey, we got no eyes on Nemesis. Be careful left. Don't fight for shield buff. And it seems like the Highland Ravens knew, at least a little bit, as they decided to retreat. Man, Barrett can't catch a break. Every time we go over this lane, it seems like he's getting stunned. He already beats. That's not going to be up for another minute and a half or so. Or he's going to have to watch his positioning, especially if Captain Twig does decide to come back.
Good news. Hurriwind is on the hill. So sustain an option for Barracuda over here in duo. Couple health potions left as well. Actually, a little better in the potion department than Genetics and Yarkar. So sustain from Hurriwind will maybe make life a little bit less uncomfortable for Barracuda. Now, so much of the pace in Game 1, Charlie, was set by this Bakasura. Really, Genetics was not having an easy time over in lane. Scream put plenty of emphasis over towards duo. Do you see similar opportunities for Bakasura in the first 10 minutes of Game 2?
Similar. I don't think it comes as easy. You don't have that immobile support over in duo lane to just gank for free. Genetics has the Riptides and a horrific emblem. Those sort of things can make Baka's time a bit more difficult. But you do have your option to try and gank variety, and I think that is somewhere that Scream might be looking towards. Once the ultimate comes through, once that Lawbringer becomes available, you get a get out of jail free card, but if it can be forced by Haddix, or if you're able to take him up with your ultimate and Scream just is there on landing to follow up, sort of like a Najah ult in that sense. But we could see some pressure over towards solo lane, and that is where Scream is for now, but Haddix has to hit that ultimate if they're going to be going for this gank, and it looks like Scream doesn't want to try and dive a tower, just going to go for the cooldown buff, and variety will be just fine for now. Did think it was an opportunity, though, for some ganks.
Still could be. Scream's got Blink.
Oh, he's going for it.
Maybe just waiting for these backs to get channeled. Blink in, ult.
Wow.
And 2 tower shots. But Scream will walk away with first blood, and he will walk away. No death for the Highland Ravens jungler on his tower dive. And Variety took too much poke. It hands 500 gold and a lead over to Scream.
I'm curious as to what Variety thought the play was there, because he did know it was coming. He blinked the blink, right? That was the obvious time. But I think he wanted to ult after, and he may have gotten stuck. Or he's like, hey, if I can just fearless him under tower, then I can find a kill. But it was just too much damage and didn't quite have the option to use that Lawbringer. So he still has the ultimate available. First blood goes the way of Scream. And now Haddix is going to be looking just fine in that lane, as you would expect again. King Arthur does get the better end of tier all the time. This is just so annoying to try and lane up against a King Arthur as a tier. You're playing just to get your farm and sort of rotate away.
Goodness.
But you're just going to be getting volleyed already. Variety comes back to lane. Haddix says, welcome back. Here's half your HP.
Yep, Haddix. Bluestone Glad Shield. There was a time where this was it. You'd see Bluestone Glad Shield King Arthur. Haddix thinking like now, still the time. Variety with Blink instead of teleport. Got to walk back to lane. Twig a level behind Scream already. A blue buff will be up here shortly. Imagine this is just a trade that, yeah, the Highland Ravens are fine with. Haddix has lane pressure. Haddix has a knock-up, and Scream's got his second kill. Twig thought he might be able to defend, but Variety's locked under tower. The Highland Ravens have just shoved pressure on right. Now get a blue buff and a second kill for their jungler.
Yep, Captain Twig thought he was safe. Haddix had the cutoff. Cripple into the knock-up, into the damage from Scream. 2-0 for the Bakasura. Right lane is done. I mean, it's solo just seems uninhabitable at this point for the Camelot Kings. Captain Twig, he might come up for some blue buff XP, but there's no way you're fighting around Variety, and there's also no way you're killing Haddix. Not anytime soon anyways. Maybe if Big Bang Tings makes a rotation, the magical defense is lacking in this King Arthur build, and probably will be for a bit. But it doesn't seem like Agni wants to get behind. I mean, as long as Ven's in lane, Tings is going to miss out on farm if he decides to rotate over to solo. So just try and play through your Agni later on. And again, Captain Twig's going to have to spend less and less time on the right side of the map. And anytime Scream can get over here, could be an opportunity to try and fight. Captain Twig is here as well. But it looks like they just rotated around each other and didn't even see.
Yeah, well, there's ward coverage for the Highland Ravens, so Captain Twig was spotted out on left. Maybe just over a ward with Scream. A second ago, already Twig is 3 levels behind Scream. Hits level 7 as I'm finishing my sentence, so call it 2, but
not a good look.
No, that's tough. The end of game 1, he was 3-4 levels behind. Scream with a couple kills and just a faster farm rate on top of that. XP per minute, a pretty good indicator there. 200 or so ahead of Captain Twig is Scream. Now, big man Ting's been farming things up nicely. He's about 100 or so ahead of Ven for a 1-level lead. Haddix shoved aside by Variety. Simply does not matter. And an ultimate out of Barracuda sets up another gank from Scream, who's on a killing spree. And Variety has ult, but is he going to get into it? He's stunned and tossed aside. Scream doesn't have blink and should be the end of it. Man, Captain Twig had an opening. That door was shut before it really started over on right.
Yeah, really getting punished for starting this blink. I mean, if Twig has beads, I'm pretty sure both of those deaths so far would have been avoidable if he was able to use them during the cripples or the knockups or just about any bit of the CC here for Scream and Haddix. Because he's got that blink, has not been able to use it aggressively, has not been able to actually use that blink and say, hey, I'm going in. And certainly hasn't been able to use it defensively. Caught out twice now for this Nemesis. 3-0 in favor of Scream. Big man Ting started to rotate over, but the second the lights turned off, he turned around and said, good luck, boys. I'm going back to lane. I don't want to deal with this. I'm level 11, the highest in the game, and I hopefully will be able to carry you later on. That's sort of the Camelot Kings mindset here. They're still sitting around in duo. The left side of the map looks fine. I mean, relatively even, and Tings is ahead, but it really is just solo and mostly jungle Scream. Put on a clinic of how to farm effectively and find inopportune time, or I guess opportune times for yourself, but inopportune times for the Camelot Kings to go in.
I was looking for Twig on the net worth charts. You have to scan a little while to find him. He's down at the bottom. Just ahead of Yark. Man, what happened there? The dual lane, I mean, it's only 100 difference from Barracuda, so I'm not going to make too much out of that, but top net worth, that's Scream, 6K. Bottom net worth, 1.5K behind, that's Captain Twig, and that's essentially your gold lead. Highland Ravens jungler hits a big power spike as well. Chin size finished.
Oh my goodness, that's so early.
Yeah. Variety. Little healing done, but little healing done is about all that Variety can hope for. Think back to the last couple games as well, where it just feels like the Kings have been out-pressured over on right. Captain Twig, Variety have just not had a good last few weeks. The Ravens realizing that's an opportunity to fight and find an advantage here. Things have been quiet over on the left and mid side of the map. Complete mirrored levels and experience in gold, though, between Scream, Twig, Variety, and Haddix. Level or 2 between both. This Bakasura immediately becomes a threat again, Trelly, and yes, there's no Aphrodite, but it wasn't linked with the Aphrodite all that often in the first game.
Has not been leaving duo lane either, either one of these teams. I mean, it just seems like 2v2 is been the call. It would be an opportune time for Hurriwind to join Ven in mid, but just let those mages solo farm has been the call. That's the reason we see, you know, both members of the duo lane on both squads. Just at the bottom of the net worth chart, Scream. It's going to blink as someone gets stunned out. But Genetics doesn't have an ultimate. Well, it doesn't want to use it in this case. It doesn't have an angle to try and find the River's Rebuke. So Scream will be just fine. But it just seems strange to me how long Hurriwind and Genetics have decided to sit around in duo. I suppose it's just because mages are a bit stronger. You want to try and let them free farm. Let Tings and Ven get their itemization online. And then you let your presence be known in mid. Look towards Furies, that sort of thing. But remember, it was the Highland Ravens that were on spawn, ready for the Pyromancer. They pulled an early gold, went to Pyro, and just kept that train going until the end of the game. And it looks like Pyromancer about to touch down. Haddix has made his rotation over. The Gold Fury started up. It's Genetics and Yark trying to step forward.
Well, it's going to be down before the Camelot Kings can really contest it. Haddix zones with an ultimate, and the Highland Ravens get the Gold Fury. Variety was rotating towards the left. But there's not going to be a fight here by the time the tier arrives. Luckily for Variety, Tower pushing the other direction, so Not losing minions to his own tower, but Contagion now added for Haddix. Limit some of the healing that Variety Genetics are going to be doing in these fights. Highland Ravens from Gold Fury over to Pyromancer. Maybe a conversation to be had by the Camelot Kings. Variety will ult in. Darkest of Nights tossed out by Barracuda. The Pyromancer picked up and dropped on the way out from the Camelot Kings. So a couple ults exchanged one side or another, but no fight to be had.
Yep, and remember, Scream is 3-0, meaning the entirety of the lead is essentially sitting in Baka's hands. Genetics has knocked up the Riptide, just not enough.
Yeah, that feels bad.
And he's going to fall down. River's Rebuke is going to give no sort of value, but Variety comes in, I guess, to just do a little bit of damage. There's no peel. Everyone's gone. The Highland Ravens are just fine with that trade. Finally, someone besides Scream gets a kill, and that's what I was going to say. If Baka was able to get shut down, massive for the Camelot Kings. But Scream's away from his team right now. He's getting tier 1 towers over on right. He doesn't even have to fight.
Now, Charlie, I don't want to underplay the 2 assists that Barracuda has in this game. Think about the Darkest of Nights from the other side of the map.
Wow.
It's been shutting out the lights, and he's played his part.
You are not wrong.
He's kicking back, and he's collecting checks that Scream is writing. I'll add assists for free every day of the week. And a Pyromancer for the Highland Ravens. 4,000 gold at 12 minutes. That's right about where we were in game 1, right? A 10 or so minute game, 4,000 or so gold in the lead. It happened a bit differently, where Genetics was the main target in game 1. This has been Variety and Twig. But it's almost the same outcome. This time there is no Zeus, however. It was a 2-headed monster. You had a Bakasura diving and a Zeus throwing out a Lightning Storm. Ven is not that fed here in this game. Not fed at all. He's equal with Big Man Tings as far as golden experience, but the pacing of this game, Trelly, not boding well for the Camelot Kings and their hopes for first seed.
Nope. If anything, they're going to have to put a stop to this running trend so far for the Highland Ravens, and that's been objective after objective, stringing them together. When this Oni Fury spawns in, we're going to have to see the Camelot Kings step up and try and find an engagement. Scream, he's got no problem.
Okay, we're going over to duo.
Find one.
We're going over to duo. Genetics doesn't have ultimate. The Scream have a leap. God, you'd love to finish off these kills. They're so low.
He wants it.
Scream hoping to close the gap, but River's Rebuke would have been waiting, and probably smart from the Highland Ravens not to chase any further forward. Haddix is in behind. King Arthur, level 13. This is a risky, really risky, high hopes type of play from Haddix. The Camelot King simply collapsed onto him, and he was out on his own. Well, everything has been going well for the Ravens. Call it an overextension from Haddix, but that has opened up the door to a tier 1 tower in mid.
Yeah, I don't think the play call was ever, hey Haddix, can you dive here? I think he might have just decided to do it himself. Vera does not use his beads. Variety will use the ultimate, but already used Fearless, so not much chase potential here, unless the blink comes with Captain Twig.
But the shell is great. The shell is great, and the shell sends this fight right back. Twig should survive. Hurriwind helps out. So does Barracuda. Scream has never left the split push. Big Man Tings will step forward. Scream does not have ultimate nor blink, so Big Man Tings, both of his actives, safe for the time being. Would have been great to get another kill for the Camelot Kings, but Barracuda finds some safety with his support.
Yeah, and Scream keeps doing this, where he clears a couple waves, then he walks away, and I'm like, okay, he's going to go help his team, he's going to rotate, and then he comes back, he's like, is everyone gone? Because if they aren't, I'm going to get one more wave and just keep trying to get ahead. In that case, the Highland Ravens, once again, looking towards the Fury, but it's Variety and it's Yarkor. They're stepping forward, and Haddix is trying to play zone duty.
Variety, will he go up and over? Doesn't have Lawbringer. Oni Fury, not worth dying for at the 15-minute point in the game. A precarious spot for both teams. Ravens much more comfortable, but a team fight loss brings the Kings right back into the game. Kind of regardless of how things went early on. 3 levels down still as Captain Twig, though. That's where a shutdown would feel great. Somebody grabbing that kill onto the Bakasura, because for now, Twig on this Nemesis is desperately trying to farm up. Go crit into another Katana item. The Camelot Kings, Trelly, they're not a team to shy away from fighting back in. Not when the lead is sub 5,000 or 6,000. And wow, they're feeling confident enough to pick up the Oni Fury. Hurriwind will step forward. There's a fight happening over on right, but the Oni Fury should get confirmed by the Camelot Kings. It does, but for now you've traded out Variety. Are you going to trade out The rest of your team, the Rivers Rebuke, immaculate in allowing the Camelot Kings to retreat from the fight. However, Scream's got Blink and a couple autos for big man Tings. Haddix now rotates through as well, and a second kill for the Highland Ravens in exchange for the Oni Fury, but it's going to get worse for the Kings. There's towers to be pushed.
There will be. One tower goes down. I like the back channel here from Scream. The question is everyone going to back? Pyromancer spawns in. You've got the one-man advantage now. The Variety spawns in, but BMT is going to be gone for a while. It looks like now they're not going to try and translate that into a Fire Giant or a Pyromancer. They're just going to retreat. It's actually Genetics and Yark that are walking towards the objective, and Scream has to get there quick. Level 18. Ridiculous amount of farming here. And that's a great blink from Haddix.
17-minute mark, goodness.
Yep, he's a minute over.
750 per minute.
What you would expect from a normal quick farm game. And maybe, yeah, Captain Twig pushing very far up, and the Ravens are trying to rotate here. Those blinks were already used, so he should just be fine. As Haddix went in, Variety's going to have to be forced to ult out, and Twig.
Yeah, there's no tower here. Twig has beads. Is it going to matter, though? The Kings get the Pyromancer in the meantime. They're going to lose their jungler for the third time this game. 4th kill for Scream. Do they immediately go to FG? Both teams have a Runic Bomb. There's ranged confirm, maybe steal if you're big man Tings. This is maybe the Ravens just asking for any opportunity to fight. They feel like they have won the engagements they've had so handily. Double stun, and a Darkest of Nights through. Fire Giants down to half. Genetics does not have Rivers Rebuke just yet. Ravens stick on it. Hurriwind is taking a lot of damage from this FG. Ravens make the call to not stick around.
Yep, still seems a bit early. Hurriwind doesn't have his cloak or his Gauntlet of Thieves stacked up, meaning he's not quite as tanky as he would like, and that Fire Giant just takes too long to do this early on. Barracuda's got 3 items to his name, none of which are an Executioner, so probably smart to just drop that one for the time being. Captain Twig just overstayed. Went real far up for that tower over on right. And the Highland Ravens called the bluff. I mean, they are making quick rotations, quick decisive rotations whenever they see an opportunity to try and scrap. And it doesn't seem like they're going to stop anytime soon. That Fury's not available. And I don't think they're going to be able to go for a Fire Giant as quickly as they would like. And an item that we haven't seen in a while is the Fey Blessed Hoops there for Genetics. Sure, it's going to be, you know, helping out your healing, which is something that a lot of these healers used to go to, but as of recent, this item's been being overlooked.
Hoping that healing and shielding equals surviving longer in fights, which tends to, but there's a near full build Bakasura. Level 19 at 19 minutes. A fight would take him over to level 20. Fire Giant started, but Variety is simply tossed aside by Venenu. There's more than enough damage from the rest of the Highland Ravens. Though Haddix learning the same about the Camelot Kings, maybe. Once again, the Kings have been able to step forward and delay out the Fire Giant. They forced an ult from Scream and forced an ult from Ven. But they have used Rivers Rebuke from Genetics in trade.
It looks like only Scream is going to stick around just in case the
Haddix is behind still.
Just in case the Camelot Kings decide to go in. Haddix is going deep here, and it looks like Bear pops the ultimate. That's the go key.
Man, Haddix has just controlled the backline as well, and he hasn't taken that much damage. There was a teleport. That's how Haddix refreshed, got back into the fight. Variety loops forward, sends a couple against the wall, and it's actually Barracuda who dies off first. Scream leaps back over, stuns,
there's the
traded. Oh goodness, it's Yark, and it's Big Man Tings with all the AoE in the jungle. And how has this happened? A double kill for Captain Twig. And the Kings have flipped the script, and they've dropped 4 members of the Ravens.
Yep, they get the shutdown on the Scream. He leaps in without his ultimate. Bakasura does not have that level of freedom. You can't just jump in without your ult. You don't do enough damage. And in this case, Variety finds a huge ultimate into a great Fearless. Captain Twig finally gets active with a nice blink to the back line. And that's going to punish not only the gold lead, but the relics of the Highland Ravens. Ven was the only one to survive that scrap. And this tower over on right is the first target of the Camelot Kings Fire Giant siege. My question becomes, how much can they grab off this? It looks like just the tower for now. But a vast overstay there from the Highland Ravens. They've been trying to force fights. They've been trying to go for Fire Giant. Just stuck around a little bit too long.
That is tough for the Ravens. First 20 minutes of this game simply didn't matter. Now the Camelot Kings not only have a slight gold lead, it's going to get bigger. A Gold Fury spawns up. They've maybe delayed the game. They're still very strong. Level 20 hit for Scream. That's first in the game. close to full build. Still ahead of Captain Twig in that area. But what felt like maybe an easy trot to first seed now becomes a lot more difficult after the Camelot Kings wrestle control back of game number 2 here. Can't count out displacement, can't count out lockdown. Big Man Tings, remember, he's been farming up this entire game. Some double stuns from the Agni. Yark steps forward as well. He's got a 2-level lead over Barracuda. That's kind of gone under my radar.
Bear has not been getting farmed.
No, CERN has. Camelot Kings with FG for another couple of minutes or so. Really, this is about putting themselves in the same exact spot the Ravens just were going into the next FG.
Yep, still a tier 1 and a tier 2 in mid. And it looks like Scream's trying to split push here with this runic bomb that he's got in hand. One of the Camelot Kings decide to rotate over and try and collapse. It looks like Scream's not going to go for the attempt at the tower. Will just run away. But it's been Barracuda that has been starved mostly of this farm. He recognizes, hey, you guys need me to do fire. I'm not going to split push. I'm just going to be here. There was a lot of fire giant attempts, but never a confirmation. And because of that, Yark was able to split push, get some extra farm, get a full item over Barra. This CERN's a real threat, whereas Bear needs some time to just AFK over in a lane like Scream's been doing. You mentioned it, already hit level 20, but is continuously the one who is split pushing, trying to get some farm done. Whereas Bear just has to be stuck underneath the tower and hope that he can get the free waves that come his way.
Scream will have to go back. Variety with Ankh in Blink does not have teleport. A bit more farm stolen away from Scream, maybe sensing the Camelot Kings were not going to attempt to siege the mid lane Phoenix. Bit of an extension out from the Ravens here, but Scream's going back, so no pincer type movement in either from the Highland Ravens. Once again, we've been reset, but this time it's the Kings bringing the lead into the next Fire Giant after a miraculous team fight. Seemingly out of nowhere after the way the rest of this game has gone, but goes to show you what a shutdown and a little bit of patience can get you right now. And it's an opportunity to close things out in the game. Joe, looks like we're going to one more FG. Fire Giant buff falls off. A couple runic bombs for the Ravens, one for the Camelot Kings. Experience is stabilized. Now it's actually Haddix who's behind after Variety was 2 or 3 levels behind for the majority of the game. Feels like Variety happy that the laning phase is over and he can now actually play the game.
Yep, unfortunately for Haddix, it's very difficult to be King Arthur from behind because when you're ahead, you get free waves, you get to stack up your ultimate, and you get to go into a fight saying, hey, I've got this great get-out-of-jail-free card, I can CC, I can do all this damage, but when you're behind, you have to find time to farm up these waves, get your energy up, so you can use that ultimate effectively, which it looks like Haddix was able to for the time being, but once you use it once, it's hard to get it back, especially when you're stuck underneath your Phoenix and too scared to even push out. So another Fire Giant would be disastrous here for the Highland Ravens, but the Camelot Kings, they're the first ones to step up. Plenty of hit level 20, plenty of upgraded those starter items. They're feeling good to step into the Highland Ravens jungle. And remember, if the Ravens are here, and it looks like Scream is going to get ulted here, but can Genetic catch him? No, he can't.
Ult traded. Oh, Variety? Whoa, what is What
was he
happened
there?
to Variety? He was there all on his own. After Scream was engaged on, Variety tried to do the same, I guess, over on right. I'm seeing a few ultimates down, maybe Ven caught him out, but it's the only pick that happens. So Scream was jumped on. The only pick that happens is the Ravens grabbing a kill on a Variety. Now Fire Giant at 25 minutes. In the air, Fire Giant burns, and Fire Giant taken by the Highland Ravens, but they have lost Haddix in the meantime. And nearly lost Twig. Barracuda dashes forward. What is happening here in game 2? Genetic steps forward once again. Barra should live, though Yark, a bit more lockdown, might be able to grab a kill. Big Man Tings dashes forward. Stun, you forgot about the Agni. And the Ravens get 3 FG buffs, a kill on a Variety, but lose their sides of the map.
Did Barra really not have Rising Jaguar? It seemed like his dash was ready. He'd been running for such a long time. Maybe he just didn't have the CDR. And in this case, I'm baffled. I mean, Scream gets caught out, but let's be honest, he was never going to get caught there. Very fast, has the slow. As long as Genetics doesn't have the Riptide, he was gone. All the while, Variety is 1v4ing in the backline. And with the build he's opted to go for, he's not very tanky. I mean, he's got Spirit Robe, sure, but he's going into more damage in that last slot. So Variety ends up going down. Haddix tries to zone. Got hit by some good crits there from Captain Twig and gets shredded. So the King Arthur dies, and you're able to grab a Fire Giant. 1-for-1 trade, that's fine, but Barracuda gets caught out trying to get the 1 HP Captain Twig. And Big Man Ting stashes in, making sure to confirm that kill and take 2 FGs away. Now it's only on Scream, Ven, and Hurry. And there are 3 Tier 2 towers that the Highland Ravens would love to go for. It's a risky call when your ADC doesn't have the buff.
God, Barracuda, he has been level 18 for the last like 5 minutes. I looked prior to that Fire Giant fight and he needed 900 XP or so to hit level 19. Now finally down to 100. We'll get it off this this purple buff, but it has been tough sledding for this Xbalanque to get farm and experience built up. Tier 2 Odibo, Tier 2 Titan's Bane. That feels fine. But Yark with full build and starter item upgrade. Massive threat.
Oh, yeah.
On this CERN. Tings and Genetics.
Haddock's going to spot this out.
Keep up behind the wall. Right, I believe Haddock sees it. Rotation through, though, from Variety, who's been a bit more free-flowy with his play here recently. As the laning phase has ended, he hit level 20 even before Haddock's. And what can the Ravens do with their FG buff? Still 3 towers outside of the King's base for the taking.
And this Tier 2 on left is where the grouping is, but Scream and Haddock's are in mid. And it looks like blinking on a Captain Twig immediately melts through the shield.
Gotta get the kill, gotta get the kill. Scream does, but there's a stun traded back by Variety. Clean engage, disengage from the Highland Ravens over in mid. Hurriwind lost some health over here on the left. Looks like been a bit of poke traded out by the Camelot Kings. Without Captain Twig, though, what can you do? There's still 2 other towers. You've used your runic bombs. They're still actually considering this siege.
Probably not much longer, though. Scream should be able to grab the Tier 2 for free. You got Twig down for 26 seconds and Fire Giant buff just left. Big stuns. You got to retreat now.
Oh, Variety. Oh, that's unfortunate. I think that's a 4-man stun from Big Man Tings. At least 3, maybe the 4th. Could have been amazing if there was additional connection from Variety. If nothing else, Ven had to burn both beads and Aegis there, sensing a reinitiation from the Camelot Kings. So you're getting value from it if you're BMT. And that's an important time to get it as well. Fire Giant's up in 30. And Ven won't have his actives for another 2.5 minutes or so. Fortunately for the Morgan Le Fay, you're going to have to play a bit more safe around the next big fight.
Good news for Ven.
Oh, tell me.
He hasn't died yet this game because no one can get to him.
You know what you've just done? You cast or cursed.
Well, Morgan Le Fay's got immense self-heal. You're a big fan of Morgan Le Fay. You should know that. So I think he's going to be just fine.
Well, yeah, not our kit.
No.
Right.
Yeah. In this
case, what our kit does, right.
Right. In this case, he could be in trouble, really. I mean, just double relic down. If Genetics is able to find it, it's just been Ven plays so far back, and I think that's the reason Variety. I mean, if you remember a long time ago when Variety got picked out, when Scream was getting chased through mid, he was trying to pull relics. Ven was ulting because this tier has one job at this moment, and it is get to the carries. And Ven and Bear have been staying very far back. No one can fight Scream yet. That is still an issue. But Haddock gets stunned and pushed back in.
Haddock's melted, but he'll get out of the River's Rebuke. And has teleport. He can reset. This is just a Pyromancer pull for the Camelot Kings. How costly is it? Runic Bomb in Variety's back pocket will tell the tale. Haddock's re-sustains. And that's 3 ultimates. That's actually pretty big. Camelot Kings use Divine Judgment, River's Rebuke, and Wild Hunt, and do not get the kill onto Haddock's. That is the go button for the Highland Ravens. Oh my goodness! It's right, Trelly. It's an initiation from Scream and Haddock's, and it's a kill onto Genetics to start. But the silver lining for the Kings is somehow Twig and Variety don't die, because that was swift and quick damage from the Ravens, and now it's a turnaround for Fire.
Yeah, grouping up for the Regurgitate, not the call. Enhanced Fire Giant has touchdown, and the Camelot Kings are looking anywhere but where this Fire Giant is spawned in. Grouping up for the AoE auto attacks, for the Odibo, for the cone. So much that Scream can do there. And it has been all Bakasura this game. I mean, Haddock is doing some great damage in the backline, maybe overstaying his welcome a bit, but it has been Bakasura creating space and finding and confirming these kills for his team. Just a beautiful game so far played by Scream. Highland Ravens finally get EFG. No one dies this time. Remember, last time it was Fire Giant on 3. This time EFG on 5. And unfortunately for Genetics, you've got the River's Rebuke. You've got one shot to make an impactful ultimate because of that cooldown, and there are 2 Phantom Shells available. Last time we saw the River's Rebuke, Haddix was able to just weasel his way out barely, and because of that, if you are going to go in, it's going to take a while before you're even able to find that opportunity because of the Phantom Shells. I will say,
they're chilling.
Yeah, I was going to say, I will say, I have no idea what this call is. Maybe
they think someone's pushing from the Kings. Maybe
it's possible.
They had Oni minions.
Yeah, it's possible they think the King's just setting up an ambush. We have the hindsight to know that they're nowhere near, but they don't know that, so we'll cut them some slack in that regard.
No slack.
All right, what a bunch of dinguses. Yeah, how do you not know they're in base right now, bro?
Yeah, good.
Yeah, there's no waves to be cleared because the Oni minions were pushing in. The Camelot Kings are in their base, though. They will not be stepping out anytime soon. Finally, the Highland Ravens have confirmation because of that ward Captain Twig walked over. So Scream knows, hey, there's some people over here. We can step forward. There is an Oni minion wave pushing right, but not going to be able to take a full Phoenix. So the Camelot Kings don't really have that going forward for them. But at the very least, Big Man Tings, last time this happened, got some big damage onto the Highland Ravens. I got my eyes on the Agni for the defense. He's got good clear, he's got good range, and Scream's nowhere near him for now.
1 minute, 15 seconds on the EFG. First seed up for grabs for the Highland Ravens. A game 3 for the same prize. That's what the Camelot Kings are fighting for. 3-1-1 is your split. You've sent Bakasura to mirror the Nemesis over on right, but
that has not gone well in the past.
Right, going to rotate over towards mid, pair up with Haddix. Everyone, except for Bracer, has their relics. An ultimate down onto Twig, but Twig has just got all the damage. But it's the Phoenix that the Ravens are worried about, and it's the Phoenix on right that the Ravens will get.
Yep, don't mind that call. Blink in, use your ultimate. The minions will tank, and Scream's able to grab that Phoenix with Enhanced Fire. Giant Haddix has the teleport to come back through if he wants to use it. And the rest of the Ravens are going to get out of the River's Rebuke once again without using Phantom Shell, but Variety and Twig are trying to chase this one down.
Haddix is going to teleport back in, though. Haddix might flip the fight around, and in fact, maybe he has. He saved Hurriwind's life. Then taking poke. Oh, goodness. Big Man Tings has done enough. Barracuda stands, but he will fall. Mid lane Phoenix given over to Scream. That's the King's opportunity for a fight back, but Scream, who has just been a split push machine this game, adds another objective to his belt. It's both Phoenixes on this push. Fire Giant falls off anyway. Barracuda will be up in time for the next one. Kings, though, defending 2 Phoenixes down. 1 in mid and 1 in right.
I mean, at this point, the Camelot Kings have to try and make something of this push, or at least of this time where Barracuda's gone, because as you said, the Enhanced Fire Giant will be spawning in a little bit. Bear's going to be a couple steps out of base when it touches down, and the Camelot Kings are already finding position. Haddix, maybe he doesn't know where they're at. He doesn't have a Phantom Shell of his own. The team might have to get over here to help out.
Yep, here they come. Core stepping forward. This might be the final fight of the game. If it's convincing one way or another, Haddix riptided back. A tanky King Arthur doesn't matter. The Camelot Kings rotate through, grab a kill onto Haddix right as Barracuda's respawning.
Scream's going to just push in for the end.
Yeah, I wonder if he is. You know, the Camelot Kings, they're going to be... There's a ward down. I think...
He hasn't crossed it yet.
I think it was a Raven's ping on that ward, though.
He avoided it, I think.
So he sidestepped it. Enhanced Fire Giant, left side Phoenix, all 3 Phoenixes down. 1 back being channeled by the Camelot Kings. Enhanced Fire Giant for the 3rd Phoenix in the base is now the call. Camelot Kings may not just have the opportunity to push out. This may effectively stall out a lot of this Enhanced Fire Giant.
Yep, Scream, the split push machine, has went through and taken down all 3 birds for the Camelot Kings, which means you can't just push through mid and right and expect the fire minions to take care of the rest. You have to worry about all 3 lanes. And they have effectively stalled out, at the very least, Barracuda and Haddix spawning back in. So it will be a 5v5. But I think you're right, Dave. It is very difficult to push in from this position. I mean, the Camelot Kings can try. They're going to go up mid. But all the Highland Ravens have to do is play as defensively as possible. And these minions will come in eventually. They have right and left side that are already being pushed up. And the Kings are just, I mean, they either try to win in one foul swoop or they're going to have to retreat. And already Scream said, I'm going for the end.
Yeah, Scream. He'll walk in with his fire minions. Only minion waves on right will contest this Bakasura. They are quickly dealing with the The minions that the Camelot Kings have backs being channeled. Captain Twig and Variety considering a back, but the backs are stopped. It's Scream who's blinked into the base, and it's the Titan who gets taken down by Scream. But no, it doesn't. He has to leap away. One back gets channeled. 3-man stun on the other side of the fight.
He's back for
Scream! He stayed around, and the Titan will not fall. Captain Twig keeps it alive. Oh my goodness! The fire minions would have gotten it done, but Scream nearly gets it, and he's kept his base alive. I think, yes, mid lane Phoenix falls.
But Haddox
the
can
Camelot
teleport.
Kings, they've got everyone. Haddox could TP.
There's not a ward close enough. He's not going to be able to go for it.
But the left side Phoenix still getting sieged. The Highland Ravens haven't been able to defend the rest of their base.
Yep, still 3 Phoenixes down. Right side will spawn in here shortly, but that Phoenix is going to not be enough. That Titan is going to sit at low HP for such a long time. The Camelot Kings have to make sure all wards are gone, or else Haddox can just blink in and end the game. Scream's gone for 24 seconds. Twig's on right. Variety's on left. It's a 4v3 here where the Highland Ravens are not trying to step out of their base. They need to stall until Scream comes back. If this EFG goes out, I mean, it's just going to be how long can you defend your base until that third Phoenix comes up on the left side of the map. 1 HP. Twig comes up massive for his team there. That Titan almost dropped just to some fire archers.
Yep. Man. Was there a world now? I mean, you're full 5 if you're the Highland Ravens. I mean, if you're the Kings, you have to meet them outside of your base, right? I mean, if you meet them in the Titan room.
There's no one slippery enough on the Ravens to get in the base for free. It's not like it's a Janus or, you know, an Apollo. They have to blink past and try and make it in. And Genetics has so much displacement. Variety's so quick. He's got his ult, his blink. It is difficult to just go in for the end call. But
it's a Scream might.
Because of this map state, it should be a guaranteed EFG for the Ravens, unless, of course, the Camelot Kings just stall until that left side bird comes up.
Yeah, but this is so risky because if Scream gets caught...
Oh, if Scream gets caught, the game's over.
It might be, and it might happen. Though Scream has been spotted. Scream's got to know
They're
now
all coming.
That everyone's starting to run at the jungler of the Highland Ravens. What do the Ravens do, though, in trade? They're starting to rotate down past the Pyromancer.
They got to go.
Can Scream just delay the rest of the game? A couple backs now being channeled. 3, in fact, so there will be defenders for the Camelot Kings.
That Phoenix is coming up
Scream
soon.
jumps up and over. He blinks over the stun, and he'll send his ult down. Big man Tings gets less than nothing as far as damage goes.
Phoenix hasn't
and the rest of the Ravens walking into the Titan room. The Phoenix will not respawn, but oh my God! The Camelot Kings have defended somehow. Scream is still here.
He's got to go
now. One last effort. He's got no relics. Unbelievable! A triple kill from the brink for Captain Twig. And we're going on to a game 3.
I cannot believe it. The Highland Ravens, they panicked. They didn't have the damage. They didn't have the CC immunity. And they end up falling. The Camelot Kings are going to siege forward, laughing all the way home, and take this one to a game 3.
God.
When first seed was on the line, the Titan did not fall.
That's right. It stands. One Titan does fall, and it's the one on the Ravens side of the map. Call it 100, maybe less HP on the Kings Titan, Trelly. And that is a near game end, a miraculous ultimate. The River's Rebuke separates the fight, and the Ravens just were not able to put their damage on the low health Titan. Variety is stressed, my goodness. Think about how the early portion of that game went for the Kings.
Not good.
I mean, they are getting run down. You're thinking Scream on this Bakasura is just going to run away with things. The tier is getting less than nothing done. And really, I think this game flips and gets delayed.
When Variety has that sick ult,
it's a big ult.
pushes
a 4-man team fight.
Twig goes to the back line. They needed that stop. They needed their Titan to live, not once, but twice. And I got to give credit to Twig. He stopped it the first time, comes in, gets a triple kill the second time. He says, hey, game's not over till the Titan dies, and ours didn't die.
Game's not over. Phase is not over.
Nope.
Number 1 seed still not determined. Kings, Ravens, number 1 seed on the line. One final game left to play. Coming up next.
Hello and welcome back to our final set of the regular season, and it's not going to end in 2 because the Camelot Kings, with 2 solid base defenses right at the tail end of the game, are able to hold the Highland Ravens out of base just long enough in order to save their Titan and push this game forward. But Gore, this is a game that was going back and forth all through early game. The Highland Ravens, in particular Scream, was able to get off to a roaring start. Variety, Big Man Tings, they were able to make a huge play throughout the mid-game, kind of stalemate things out, bring it back towards the Kings. And I've never seen someone gremlin mode as hard as humanly possible as Scream did in this game. And it almost worked out. He was so close, maybe a couple auto attacks away, but it just wasn't enough. The Camelot Kings, Captain Twig able to stop them, and then immediately after, one more solid base defense, it's the Kings winning out game 2.
That's the one. There was a little bit of overlap. There were like 3 scenarios in those where if a little bit goes different, the Ravens win. First time they pick off Haddix. If Scream has a ward around that time, Haddix comes back like right at the tail end. If he's able to drop that ward, Haddix could teleport deep in. Scream doesn't have a ward on him, right? So it doesn't matter. That's one of those what-if scenarios that just means nothing. Then you get to the point where the base is being sieged by the Kings. All 5 of them are up there. Scream goes again. And all it would have taken, either a ward or, more importantly, just stopping the backs more consistently. I stood up. I even looked at you, and I said, I'd be yelling. I would be furious because it was right there, like in his grasp. But Twig made it back. Twig saved the day. And then, of course, there are moments where they're getting picked off. A lot of good team fights in the late game for the Kings. And specifically, a lot of good damage coming down from BMT. That made it way harder than it would have been otherwise. And a lot of that damage is really what makes a big difference. That's a good kill as well. I mean, Twig being able to find the back line, but the giant AoE from BMT several times, whether it was the stun or just straight up the damage numbers, good example, where it stopped the Ravens flat on their face. And you can get a Titan, that just goes to show, down to 2 hits, 3 hits, whatever you want to call it. But if you cannot get past the CC and the damage on the other side, or in some cases, if your team can't hold the backs, then you're not going to be able to find it. And despite winning, I would argue, maybe 99% of a Titan, don't win the game if you're the Ravens there because of great defenses, good damage, and just good presence on the board. The ward coverage from the Kings is the real MVP. Getting them back in time to make sure that they, if you're waffling, should we siege, should we back, should we siege, should we back, which one are we doing? It depends on what they're doing. What are they doing? Oh, 3 of them just showed up down in the bottom right side of the map. Okay, we know what we're doing now. And so you're able to back in time and get there for the defense.
And with that, the Camelot Kings now push us to game number 3, and we can jump into the picks and bans between the final game for these 2 teams' regular season, the Highland Ravens, the Camelot Kings. Game number 3, picks and bans now are ready to go. And I'm going to be honest, Gore, I might just ban the Bakasura so Scream can't do that kind of nonsense again. Probably not the most wise ban immediately out of the top 3, but definitely something I don't know if I would ever want to play up against. I was going to make a joke and say, man, I bet you Scream probably did more structure damage than he did player damage this game. Nearly did. 15K to the structure damage to the 22,000 player damage for Scream that game.
My man's was split pushing.
Tripling Barracuda's structure damage. And he's the hunter. He's the one who's supposed to be killing the towers. The one supposed to be killing these structures as well. But now we jump into game number 3. Highland Ravens, they'll stick with the Marty ban. It's something that BMT has had success on quite a few times to the Camelot Kings. The Horus, something that's not only meta, but one of Genetics' premier picks. On the opposite side for the Camelot Kings, Yamoja, going to be banned away. If you're not in the first pick spot, you certainly don't want to give it over to the undefeated Hurriwind on this pick.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking as well, which is just, you know what? If you're going 6-6, when you got a Yamoja, you'd make it 7 for 7 here. I like the Kings banning that. Aphrodite, I think, is just a good ban. I think the Aphrodite has been what enables a little bit more. It's not the end-all, be-all, right? But if you look at things that have made success for the Ravens, I scrolled to their set earlier this week. It was actually 2 Yamoja games, so that's not even fair. It's looking at, I think, the either Aphrodite being able to then enable like your Zeus's, being able to enable your Bakasuras, and make their lives a lot easier. I mean, imagine any of those last team fights and Barra just gets to live an extra 10 seconds, right? Imagine any of those team fights and suddenly you're talking about Vin or Scream having a second life essentially gifted to them. I think that you're in a much better position if you're the Ravens. A lot of those fights become way more difficult for the Kings. And it's something that you can do with an Aphrodite while staying aggressive versus something like a Khepri, which involves kind of like you either put yourself in bodily harm, or in order to get that, you've got to be behind your carries, right? I mean, the aim aspect of the way a Scarab's Blessing work puts you in a really awkward spot if you're trying to dive deep. So something that you're not going to be getting pretty much anywhere else. I like that they take that away to disable the Ravens from having that playstyle. I like the Yamoja ban, not just because of the win rate, but because I feel like Hurry, whether it's Riptide stuns or the walls. I mean, we got to see quite a few of them from Genetics that last game, and that's just a taste of what you're going to get from a pro Yamoja. I think that that's one of the easiest bans that you could have made, and I think the Bakasura belongs up there too, and that's just because 2 games in a row, Bakasura has gone insane, forced Scream to at least play something different.
mean, first pick Hercules. Gore, I'm going to be honest, it's been a while since we've seen Hercules thrown towards a #1 pick for a couple teams. It felt like
hell, he wasn't even looked at last game.
It felt like our first 2 weeks of the season. It was Hercules #1 or he's banned, and if you don't pick him first, you're immediately going to get him second pick. Now, over the course of the last few weeks, kind of sometimes made it to a last pick, sometimes made his way into like the 3rd, 4th, maybe even a 5th kind of a pick for some of these teams out here. But high priority for the Highland Ravens. And I wonder now where Hurriwind goes specifically, because, I mean, if we look at Hurriwind specifically this phase, Gore, he's only gotten wins on 3 gods. Aphrodite, Yamoja, and Nox has been the only other god that has been a win for the Highland Ravens support. Vamana Serket is a devastating combo to give to the Camelot Kings, because that means that this Vamana is going to variety this time, and the Serket over to Captain Twig.
And honestly, I love that. I'm still a little surprised that Serket didn't get picked up last time. I'm surprised in this instance that Hercules... I've been preaching a lot about Hercules. Still surprised to see him over the Serket. And so I think that is a very brave pickup for the Ravens. It needs a lot. Also was looking at it, because, I've been talking about it, saying that it feels like it's been undervalued. Which is a little wild because he's been in every single game today, whether it's been bans or in a couple of picks. But he's lost every game he's played today, right? 4 times in a row, sandwiched by a bunch of bans. Hercules is lost. Definitely not the best look that you would maybe want at him, but then you maybe start to factor in some other things. I think he still looked good for Ducky there in Game 2. If it weren't for Baskin, that probably looks a lot better for them. I'm a big fan of Hercules. I think the Serket's going to give not necessarily him a lot of trouble, but the Ravens as a whole a lot of trouble. His matchup versus Vamana will be interesting. But I'm going to be honest with you, I can't understate how much happier I am to see him go solo.
Gordon, I don't understand it. I mean, I think you're 100% right. To Serket, heavier priority probably than the Hercules, has been much more successful of a pick overall. And if we're just talking about Scream in particular, 3 games, 100% win rate, and a 24 KDA. And Serket. You're not picking Serket when your jungler has a 24 KDA in 3 games? The Highland I'm not saying that they have thrown the game by giving Serket, Vamana, and Rom to the Camelot Kings, but I feel like they could have easily picked up that Serket and given up the Hercules when Scream has that level of performance on this pick.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I mean, you've got the added benefit, which is that and this is where it gets like a really weird, I want to say even nuanced. Twig's Serket is still going to be very good, but like I said last time, Twig is not, when I'm thinking Twig, Serket's not immediately high up on my list. I said it last time and I'm going to say it again. That does not mean he has a bad Serket. In fact, if anything, he still has a really good Serket. It's just
like 71%
he plays, I was going to say, he plays others a little over it. Like you said, 71% feels really solid for him. I think that if I'm looking at this, it's that trade-off of, do you want to deal with Twig's Serket, or would you rather deal with Variety's Hercules? And that's not a choice I envy of anybody. I think both of those, it feels like a lose-lose scenario. I do like it for Haddix, though. I think, again, the Hercules feels really solid. Serket can be manageable, right? If you're going to get for the Nox, all of a sudden you've now got a giant silence field, which is going to make her feel a little more awkward. You dash in, good luck getting back out of there, or before you even dash in or dash out, you're going to get grabbed up by that. So the Nox has a lot of opportunity. I honestly love the mage support so far that we've seen from Hurry. I feel like top 3-wise, just tier list, favor of Kings. Matchups, maybe throw the Ravens a bone there. I like what they've got.
Highland Ravens, along with that Hercules Nox, throwing Agni in the mix. A Wheelish being hovered. We'll talk about the other bans that came through, though. Camelot Kings, Susano and Naja away from Scream. Giannis from Big Man Tings on a ban for the Ravens. And then Ymir, which, not to say that Genetics doesn't have a great Ymir, but we're not seeing much Ymir at all. And if you're banning a guy with a wall, I'd ban Terra from this man, just because of how nuts his Terra performance has been.
Yes and no. I think that Terra is definitely the more meta. I think the Ymir wall in this instance, though, because I mean, look at their draft now.
Yeah,
not a single soul is walking through a Ymir wall on there. Well, if you're going to get locked down, I think the Terra fits in. But the thing is that the Terra walls are parallel to where you're looking, or they're perpendicular to where you are.
No, They come
parallel. They're sideways compared to where you want them to be. You want Ymir wall, it's going to be right there blocking them off. You want Terra walls, you've got to turn 90 degrees to get it where you want it. So it makes it a lot more difficult to make that work. Still think it would absolutely slam in this. I mean, we've seen Genetics Terra walls ruin people's lives, and now you've got nothing but people on the Ravens that it could have locked down. I think the Ymir ban is indicative of the fact that they knew they were going for picks that weren't going to play well into it, and they already had 3 that weren't playing well into it. So it's great that they didn't have to deal with that. Otherwise, you're talking 2 to 3 Phantom Shells because you're sad if you don't have them.
Well, we won't see the Terra. Instead, it was hovered over towards Geb for the Camelot Kings. So Geb Discordia for the bottom 2 of the Camelot Kings, Highland Ravens, Kleena, and Shibalanke.
Yeah.
The Kleena, so far 100% win rate for Scream this phase. It is the second highest performing KDA got at the least, though vastly overshadowed by the 24 Circad. It's a 9.5 KDA on the Kleena still. And Shibalanke is something that Barracuda's gone to multiple times. Even had banned away from him a little bit as well. So for the Highland Ravens now, lose out on game number 2. Came very close with Scream trying to backdoor the Titan once. Everybody kind of funneling in at the very end in game number 2 to try and take it again. Highland Ravens fumble out on there. So now it feels like it comes down to the actual play on field. We've seen what Vamana can do in solo lane via Baskin just earlier today. But if you're Scream on this Kleena, you don't really have the lockdown to maybe try and take out a Vamana. You've got a Nox over on the opposite side. If you're Scream, do you maybe try and focus out dual lane a little bit for the Camelot Kings? Or do you maybe sit there in mid and try and deal there? Or do you even attempt to go over towards this Vamana?
I think you could probably deal with mid the easiest. I mean, Discordia's leap isn't very far, and so you've got a little wiggle room there. The duo lane is still pretty easy, especially early on. The downside is because you had highlighted, you have a Nox over in duo that can maybe help you. Geb Shield. Geb Shield exists, and if you were watching the other day, I know a lot of people were questioning it. I believe maybe it was just yesterday. Sometimes they all start to blend together. We saw the Geb locked in a counter to the Nox, and it's kind of easy to forget sometimes how great Geb is as a counter for her. I mean, it absolutely ruins her life, right? You've got a single target CC on your 1, and Geb just says, none of that. You're 2, great. You can silence something cool. How many times are you getting 2 to 3 people? Geb more than likely going to be able to deal with that. I think there's a lot of opportunities here for him to just really shut that down and cause a lot of trouble for the Nox specifically. In the duo lane, that doesn't mean too much, right? You're looking at Shibalanke versus a Ram. Shibalanke clear and boxing-wise probably wins that out early on. With the shielding and supports, it's up in the air. With the junglers, it makes your time a little bit rougher because your CC's just not there as heavily.
It was a battle of team fights in game number 1. It was base races in game number 2. What surprises do we have in store for game number 3? Let's jump right in with Dave and Trelly for the action.
One final game for the 1 seed over in the Order Division. Team who wins this game, they get an automatic bye to SMITE Masters. Team who does not win this game, they got to go through playoffs. They got to go through the rest of the qualification process. A game in game 2, Trelly, that the Ravens might feel like they could have won, should have won.
I would hope they feel that way, yes.
But it's a game the Camelot Kings did win, despite what was a brutal early game for really the second game in a row. And now we're back to 50-50 for game 3. Not 51-49, but 50-50. Maybe seems fair after everything that we've seen. Early game got to be vitally important here, you'd imagine, for the Camelot Kings, because it has just not been pretty up to this point so far this set.
I can tell you first and foremost, this clear was a big blunder. Yeah, Barracuda moved, and Hurry ended up missing the dash because of that. Very weak. And I have a lot to say about what I'm looking at currently. First and foremost, Dave, I want you to look to the left.
Okay.
I want you to look to the right.
Okay.
Have you done that?
Yep.
The world is healing. There is 0 healers in this match. And because of that, Barracuda, once again, was he not 1 HP last time? He's got to stop stepping up.
These early clears.
It takes 1 minion to hit level 2, and Barrac keeps forgetting and just gets so weak at the beginning of every single lane matchup. So that's the first thing I want to know. There are 0 healers in a first seed matchup for the Order Division.
That's right.
Which is a big deal. Guan Yu was completely overlooked. I mean, Afro and Hell were banned away, but something to consider. In this case, the Circuit got through, which is wild to me. But it seems to be the Highland Ravens made one call as Captain Twig on that Circuit. It's low, but Scream's not going to be able to find it. The Highland Ravens made a judgment call. They said, hey, let's let this Circuit through. and we'll grab Nox and just ruin the Camelot Kings' day, whoever decides to play it. But what I think they failed to consider was Variety would get Vamana in the mix. Serket and Vamana is a dangerous combo. And remember, Captain Twig played the Vamana. He didn't love it. Now you're giving it over to Variety? I'm curious to see how this solo lane Vamana ends up going, because in game number 1, of course, the full damage didn't quite work out.
It'll be Scream on something that's not Bakasura for the first time this set. Be playing the Kleena instead. Still a style of pick that Scream tends to enjoy. Haddix will try his hand on the Hercules. Up against that very same Vamana. Scream out of the wall. Little damage for Captain Twig. Always got to be careful when there's a Kleena in your game. Never quite know exactly where they're hovering. So early health battle goes to the Highland Ravens. The pacing, though, might be a little bit different from Scream. He has been a split push monster. You can't just gobble up the camps quite as easily on the Kleena. Have to calculate those invades maybe a little bit differently in the remainder of Game 3.
It's something I want everyone to keep their eye on.
Okay.
And this is something I've only noticed about Scream's Kleena gameplay. No one else, besides when she was playing solo, tends to do this. Scream maxes the dash more often than not. And because of that, the majority of his damage is going to come from that dash, right? When he's lunging forward out of the wall. Most people put it in the 2 if they think the 1 is going to cancel the 1, but Scream is not going to be able to use his dash defensively if he's trying to get active. So A, you might be surprised by how much the swipe is doing, but B, it's hard to retreat when you're doing a play like that. Just something to keep your eye out for, considering how much damage we know Captain Twig can do in the Serket is picked for her early pressure. The amount of time she can just pull beads and look for early ganks. So much damage from both of these assassins. Scream definitely getting the better end of the XP trade, hitting level 5 first, but Captain Twig not too far behind. And no blinks from the junglers, both of which, fearing the CC, go in for the beads, probably playing a more passive start.
What your take is on the Geb here? There were some options for genetics during picks and bans. I think they hovered the Terra towards the end. Ended up pivoting back towards Geb. I'll let you think about it while Captain Twig makes a gank happen over on left. Emblem used by Hurriwind. Gotta be an early kill, and it is. And finally, Captain Twig grabbing first blood here in this set. It's first blood in a pivotal Game 3 onto Hurriwind.
Yep, as telegraphed as it gets. You stepping that far up, someone's going to come over, but no ward coverage. Means Hurriwind gets his dash stopped. Means he goes down for first blood, and I'll tell you, Dave, because it was Hurriwind that played the Geb recently, and I was a big fan of it then. As long as it's an answer to the Nox, you're going to have a good time. Oh, man.
That stinks.
Yeah, Variety did not call the bluff. That would not have pulled. And Variety was scared. He was going to die. There was no boulder even, so I don't think it would have killed regardless. But use the Colossal Fury, so maybe Scream heads over to solo lane, trying to find access to a kill from that side of the map. But in this case, I like the Geb. I think Geb is slept on even out of the Nox matchup. But in this case, it's a great counter. The second you see that combo come through, a shield is going to solve your problems. But here comes Captain Twig behind Scream. Might have to retreat here.
Scream sure does. Never went into the wall, went a dash towards Variety. You were right, though. Colossal Fury missing, used. So Scream maybe sensing an opportunity for a gank on right. Actually still sticks around here. Trades a bit of health with Captain Twig. Variety realizing he's got some safety in his jungle. No mana, no ultimate, no problem. A blue buff invade would feel great here for Scream. Tings rotates over to red. Red's not there, so it could be a quick rotation to right if the Camelot Kings end up wanting to fight this. Oh. They do. Oh, man. Captain Twig, though, has taken all the damage in the world, and all of it's dealt by Scream and Haddix. Man, and in the 3 versus 2, doesn't matter. The Highland Ravens find the kill.
Yep, incredible burst damage. And again, I saw Scream trade with Twig in the jungle. He hits his 1, he hits his 2, not much damage. Twig says, hey, I'm going to jump in here. Haddix says, all right, driving strike into the wall, Scream dashes. That's where the big burst comes through. And of course, here's the Veil. Was able to do a little bit of tick damage on top. And that's going to be an easy kill there for Scream on top of the invade there for Haddix. So right side of the map. This is how last game started. Looking real good. At the very least, Variety doesn't go down. I think that's the big difference maker, right? You were looking towards kills onto Variety, whereas now you're just looking at invades and kills onto Captain Twig, which certainly did happen in game number 2 as well. The Bakasura was getting the better end of those trades on a Nemesis, but now Scream says, hey, Kleena still can find some of those aggressive plays. Haddix doesn't really want to try and fight when Colossal Fury is available, so just going to get some clear. He went for the regrowth, though, and I've been liking this a lot. Dropping the Golden Blade, picking up more protections early on. Hercules has always had fine clear, and when you don't, you just boulder the wave. Everyone does it. It's not going to be that big of an issue as long as there's not incredible amounts of lockdown on the side of the Camelot Kings, which Variety just doesn't have. Twig does, but because he just fell down, shouldn't be a problem. Drop the boulder whenever you'd like for some poke, to confirm a buff, anything like that.
Haddix has really been in control of the solo lane the last couple games. Has received some assistance from his jungler. Been winning the totem battle 4-1. I think 8 straight in the last game in the King Arthur. Didn't matter by the end of it, though. Twig dashes forward towards Scream.
I think he tried to ult that.
Considered it, but ends up having to back away. Neither jungler immediately rotating over towards solo. Haddix dancing around what looked like a knock-up attempt from Variety. The Serket versus Kleena battle continues on here, Trelly. One that Twig got the better of the dual lane early. Scream got the better of the right side in a fight just a few moments later. Twig will just be happy that we've gotten to a point here in the late early game, or maybe mid-early game, at a point where he's equal with Scream.
Ben is going to be running away from Genetics. Possible chest camp invade as on top of the green buff, which was being looked at.
Chester.
Yep, Chester's done. Twig makes out like a bandit, and now Variety has just enough mana to go up into the sky. Oh, man, Scream just had enough HP to hide. It looks like he'll be able to wait out the Colossal Fury. And Barra wasted his ultimate to try and make sure.
No assist this time.
Yep, no assist, no extra gold. But it looks like purple buff could be on the cards here. Hurriwind's looking weak. And if the Camelot Kings get to that purple buff first, there's no way Barra's got much burst to try and confirm it. This is a risky call in general, though. Scream does not have a lot of HP, and Variety still has a lot of safety. To try and go for a gank would be a bit risky, but Captain Twig's on the other side of the map. He just wants to make sure this purple buff goes down.
Barra has beads, does not have ultimate. Doesn't use the beads, but now will dash away. A couple ults used. Looks like confirmed purple buff pickup, though, for the Camelot Kings, and a shield buff, so a couple buff camps worthwhile when you're considering Genetics and Yark and their ultimates, and maybe their non-likelihood of using those in any other moment. Tends to be in Game 3, you slow down a little bit. We've seen early Gold Fury pulls in now back-to-back games. But if neither team feeling far enough ahead to rotate to that objective in the next couple of minutes, could end up stalemating out just a bit. Remember, the poke damage from Big Man Tings helps flip Game 2 around as well. That's what Ven is going to have this time on the Agni. And it seemed like by the time we got to team fight phase, the Ravens never really had a great answer for finding that backline. You wonder if the Kings, maybe you're hoping that Vamana and Serket can just march on towards the Agni.
I think at this point, it's going to be a bit different just because Scream is on the cleanest. So if you can sit back until level 20, when you have like Heartseeker, when you've got upgraded damage items and you can just spam through the wall, it becomes a lot easier to find engage because Scream just says, oh, half of my carry's HP is gone because he stood a little bit too close to the wall I was in, now we can engage. Whereas Baka, he has to commit his body, he has to blink in, he has to put himself in trouble. You know, and I think that's might have been the reason that Scream decided to split push the rest of that game away. Kleena does offer a little bit more safety in that regard. The Camelot Kings, though, grouping up towards the Fury. Not to go for a pull because Yarkor's not even here, but trying to find Hurriwind. We've seen time and time again some lockdown onto this Nox. With the Prophetic Cloak, you're not too tanky until you start getting some stacks online, so maybe that's the reason that Hurriwind's been the main target of the aggression here from the Kings. But still, grouping up around the Gold Fury has been the call. Tings hasn't been here. He's just been farming, but everyone else, 3 core of the Camelot Kings dual lane and Twig, has spent a lot of time over on the left side of the map.
A little bit of poke into Hurriwind, a little bit into Barracuda. Not enough to commit a dive. Good auto attacks from Yark. But it is enough to pull Scream over to the left side of the map as well. Ward coverage from the Kings will spot out Ven on his way over from mid, back behind the green buff and the chest camp and the purple buff. It's a ward battle that's being won by one team right now. Don't see much of anything from the Highland Ravens, so this might be a bit of surprise to Hurriwind. Blink forward. Hurriwind survives in the second wind of the fight over to the Ravens and a confirmed purple buff. Kings come up empty-handed over on left.
Hurry says, you can blink ult me once, but next time I'm going to have my Night Terror to immune that stun. The ult's off the mark, but it's for the CC immunity. Hurry didn't want to get locked down. And Twig decides to hold on to his ultimate because he realized, yeah, we're probably not killing this Nox if that stun doesn't connect. But Yarkor has been playing extremely aggressive. This Rama has not spent too much time on his own side of the map. A lot of pressure towards Barracuda on the X-Ball, trying to get him in range of those snipes. You see Haddix walk over to Pyro. I was going to say, the Ravens really feeling like they can step up when the rest of the team is gone. I'm going to say no. Scream does have great damage, don't get me wrong. If you pierce the Veil and drop 2 of those on the Pyromancer, it'll go down relatively quickly, but just starting Transcendence tells me that Scream's playing more passively. He wants to get stacks online and fast track to level 20. Probably don't want to be taking contested pulls when the rest of the Kings are here. If they're on gold, sure. You go for the Pyro, you say, hey, we're going to trade. I'm going to go back to farming. But if they're in your face, probably not the call. This is what they were waiting for, though. Kings are gone. They've got a ward here, but too little too late. Pyro goes down for free. Scream picks up the Runic Bomb. That's easy to get.
Scream is still about a level and a half ahead of Twig. Was 2 levels ahead just a second ago. Spent some time on the Pyro while Twig was back and farming up. So that gap may close a little bit, but still a trend that's been established now is early game advantages to Scream in the jungle battle of this set, and can say the same for Haddix. He's 1 level ahead of Variety at this point in the game as well. Neither solo laner has teleport immediately. Barracuda ulted by Captain Twig, but he uses the beads, avoids a lot of the return damage. The apple bounces, and the apple gets Barra. But Barra had an auto or 2 in trade for Captain Twig in the meantime. Hurriwind steps forward and then dashes away. Snipes 1, no good. 2 is good. 3 might have just killed Hurriwind, but didn't hit anyway. Barracuda for Twig's the trade.
Yep, Twig jumps in. Barra says, hold on a second. I've got enough damage. I'm going to try and return this kill. If that apple didn't hit, Twig definitely dies for his troubles and is not able to find that kill. But Big Man Tings bounces it off the wall probably 5 or 6 times. And is able to find its way towards the X-Ball, which means Barra goes down at the very least with a trade. So still 2 for 2. The Highland Ravens. I mean, it's interesting because, you know, Tings has been on top of farm. Getting a kill there's a big deal. He pulls ahead of Ven. But Haddix still has a lot of pressure over in solo lane. Has been doing good. But Hurriwind's by himself here. Does have to jump into Barra to try and retreat. And look at Variety. He's not heading over to solo lane. He's coming right here because Haddix already made the rotation over. It's going to be a 5-for-5 towards this Goldfear. Who's going to feel confident enough to pull? Looks like no one yet.
Haddix invests his teleport. Variety had already used his to get over to right. So kind of this teeter-totter of a teleport battle's going on. If a fight were to break out, Variety would be able to TP back to right if things fizzle out, whereas Haddix would have to walk back. And though those are minor moments, can add up to additional waves and buffs, and has kept Variety a bit closer in the XP department.
Is a teeter-totter the same as a seesaw?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I was thinking.
I think, yes.
Okay.
My initial guess is yes, but now I'm questioning it.
Well, because I was thinking of, you know, right. On one side it goes up, one side goes down, but I always knew it as a seesaw.
Right.
And you called it a teeter-totter, but
I wonder if that's like a northern versus, I wonder if that's like an Ohio thing.
I was born in Pennsylvania.
Oh, well, what do you call sprinkles?
I do not say Jimmy's.
I say Jimmy's.
I know you do. I've heard it many times.
But I've made a point to call them Jimmy's. Like, I know I'm a Sprinkles, but I've decided that I'm going to call them Jimmy's, even though I've been in Georgia for 25 years of my life. It's been an active decision. And Barra makes an active choice with his life here. He'll back away from the tier 1 that's dropped at 15 minutes. That is good for first tower in the game. Yark and Genetics have just built up pressure on left. And it has kept Barracuda away and really unable to rotate out. What's that resulted in? Not terribly much. Maybe 1 level lead for Yark, a few 100 gold here or there. So Barracuda still even as far as itemization goes for now. Really just happy that he hasn't fallen way too far behind, especially with the Gold Fury still standing. Having your ADC up for the first Gold Fury of the game. Great advantage. Though it is 2 levels as we stand. Might even right back though, depending on where the wave is. Sure does. Mid laners have gone eye for eye with one another, though Charon's coin for Tings is his middle item. Rod of Tahuti for Ven on the other side, but still itemization across the board. In a very similar spot. Trelly, dare I say it, we're going to get one of our first even 16-minute fights of the set.
Yep, once again, Variety walks over. Haddix recognizes it, follows him on the way towards this Fury. I'm wondering what the engage is because, you know, Blink Cataclysm from Genetics could start this fight, but look at the Fury already going. Yeah, it's Variety and Genetics just zoning.
They should be able to get this. Scream's not going to be able to get in the wall and steal it away. The Kings get the Gold Fury, and they disengage immediately.
Just straight to Pyro.
Just stronger presence from the Camelot Kings and maybe quicker rotations through. But now, Kings got to be worried. They're being funneled through this tiny little canyon over in the mid lane camps. That's where Ven can find great cleave damage. Haddox, goodness, he was all alone there.
Scream
Ultimate
started it
out
up.
from Hurriwind. Yes,
gone.
indeed, and finished it. And so now another Pyromancer for the Highland Ravens, this time in exchange for the Gold Fury over in mid, but all this neutral gold, call it Bastions, Tier 1 towers, still an advantage of the Kings.
Yeah, man, it looks like Twig is going to blink forward, pull the Magi's off of Hurriwind, but now Twig might be in some trouble.
But Hurriwind just dashes away. Twig has got to leap away. Barracuda draped the shades over the fight. Variety hoping to steal away a red buff. Then a mid laner, ravenous for more red buffs, will not allow that to happen. Things end up fizzling out over here in the mid lane. Neither team, Trelly, is really taking a big risk at this point in the game. Highland Ravens don't overextend to try to fight for the Fury. The Camelot Kings do the same for mid Tier 1.
One of my favorite interactions you get to see in Smite is when the solo laners rotate out. They get their first taste of mid lane damage and immediately go back to base and say, ooh, I need some magic defense. Variety finally starts working on it. Ven did some good damage there when Variety was trying to steal that red buff. But the trading of objectives means that's probably the end of the aggression for now. Still only 2-2. Not for a lack of trying, though. It hasn't been a completely passive game in the sense of actual blood spilled. Yes, only 4 kills total, but there's been attempts. Yarkor and Genetics are hiding, waiting to see if Bear is going to step forward, but he's been playing so passively all game. I don't imagine now is the time he decides to brave the encounters of Yarkor and step forward. He has no idea that Genetics is nearby, but he's playing smart. He's just going to stick around because there was a ward closer if Genetics walked up. And Bear said, hey, I am here to get to level 20, and until then, I don't want to take any trades. This is not an ego contest. Yarkor is just ahead XP-wise. And has the snipes to try and confirm that kill that Bear doesn't want to go for. But because both objectives are down again, probably the end of the aggression for now. Haddox and Variety haven't really left lane except for that one Gold Fury fight and the one attempted Gold Fury fight prior. And it has been Scream still getting the better end of Captain Twig. 2 levels on this Kleena. It could start to add up, you know, the damage that Scream can do once he gets that Heartseeker online and some extra DPS. He's going to go over to Variety, but Variety's got Colossal Fury, which means he gets to walk out for free unless they're trying to lock him down here. Hurry's got to hit the combo.
Got to hit some damage, too, because Variety's got Blink. Variety dodges enough out. Would have been a nice little advantage for the Ravens, especially with some rotations towards right. A kill there might have just been a Fire Giant pull. Right around the 20-minute mark. Twig going a bit more hybrid with his build. Transcendence, Stone of Binding, Relic Dagger at that. Genetics makes some plays happen over in mid. Gets the beads off of Ven with the Blink Cataclysm. Hurriwind all on his own, all by his lonesome, and that's how he'll die as Yark has the last bit of damage. I mean, Nox has been right on the edge all game long. And the Kings finally call Hurry on it. Though poke damage returned has maybe sent the Kings running.
Yep, Hurry still not tanky. Remember, it's Cloak Magi's. That's it. You need that Cloak stacked up. He does not have it. He's trying to be a frontliner as a level 13 when Big Man Tings is level 19. He's got 6 levels. You cannot stand up. You are just a Nox with a Cloak, as far as I'm concerned. So not going to work out. Scream still had some good damage, and that was a beautiful blink engage from Genetics to force Ven forward, pull the beads, and the second Ven's beads are gone, Hurry goes into protector mode. Says, don't worry, I'll peel him off, I'll step forward. But you lose your life. And it's actually Haddox stepping forward, and the Ravens, they're not going to hit this. Surely not. They're down a little bit longer. Hurriwind had a short respawn time, but you're not feeling confident enough to make a pull onto the FG. Not at this moment. So it looks like it's not going to come from anything, but still, Barracuda, I think he's been caught in this trap twice now, where he rotates way too early, no Fire Giant gets done, and he's stuck with these exact 3 items and never ticks over to level 20, whereas Yark says, hey, I'm going to rotate, but I'm going to get farm. I'm going to be clearing waves, I'm going to be doing objectives, and then I'm going to go back. It just seems like he's been stuck at level 16 2 games in a row because his team wants to fight, because Ven has a little bit extra farm, because Big Man Tings hits 20. Sometimes it's better to say, hey, You guys can fight 5v4. Let me get some items online. Let me hit level 20 first.
Yep. Barracuda was stuck at level 16 for a while, and then level 18 for a while. Finally hit level 20, I assume, by the end of that game. Mid to left, experience-wise behind for the Highland Ravens. Ven level behind Tings, who's hit level 20, first in the game. Pretty far ahead of anyone else as well. Hurriwind and Barra, talked about them. Good news for the Ravens is Scream has maintained about a 2-level lead over Captain Twig. Whereas Farm has just been quick and he's rotated throughout the map. So you're hoping this Quina can find some value with the slight lead that has been built up.
Here come the Kings.
Ultimate from Twig onto Haddix. Taunt back through, a knock-up onto the Hercules. But a dash out of the Cataclysm may have just saved Haddix. It looks like has indeed. Oni Fury pulled by the Highland Ravens. Variety is here. Can't afford to let this one get stolen. A Fire Giant immediately picked up by the Camelot Kings over on right. It's solo laners trying to steal the objectives. Hurriwind taking way too much damage from the Oni Fury. The Ravens get the Fury at least. Excavate flies through the Fire Giant, but no chance for a steal there. Haddix has controlled the right side enough, however, and that's forced the Fire Giant to be dropped by the Camelot Kings.
They're retreating.
And my goodness, this Hercules has forced the Camelot Kings back and given Barracuda some time to farm.
Yeah, Barra said, forget it. I'm going to hit level 18. I'll see you guys later. Hopefully they don't do fire. And it was just the threat of Haddix. Ven makes a late rotation in. All the while, Variety decides to try and chase down Hurriwind. Could not find that kill. And that is insane to me that the Camelot Kings don't commit to that Fire Giant. They didn't want to risk it. That was a lot of free farm that Barracuda desperately needed. Ends up finishing that dominance and going into a tier 2 Odibo. Rotates back in level 19. I mean, you couldn't ask for a better play if you're the Highland Ravens. Bear was 2 levels down, a full item. Now he's got half an item, probably just because Yarkor hasn't backed yet. But the Fire Giant does not go down, which means the Highland Ravens are in a good position. Hurriwind doesn't have that upgraded starter item, but did finish the Stone of Binding. So he's a little bit tankier, harder for him to connect.
Twig initiates, but Twig gets shoved back by Haddix. Hurriwind, well-timed dash. Remember, first place on the line. Genetics wants it with the Cataclysm onto Haddix. Takes a set of beads away from Barracuda, though, in the meantime. Supports have used their ultimates. Junglers have as well. Rotating around this FG. Little pressure mounting from the Highland Ravens on the left side. Phoenix not going to get taken down. Not in a long while, but we'll start to deal a little bit of damage on that side of the map.
Yep, the tier 2 tower drop. That's a big deal. Highland Ravens could get pulled ahead in the gold lead just because of that tower dropping, really. And it was still a good ultimate, don't get me wrong. You said it yourself. Pulled the beads from Barracuda, but it seems like the Camelot Kings are focusing all their damage towards tanks. I mean, Captain Twig is using his ultimate to pull the Magi's off of Hurriwind, just because the way that ultimate works. You jump on their head, you're able to use a little bit of CC, and you can still throw them where you want to, even though the bubble goes down. It lasts a long time. Fire Giant getting burned, and Ven's the only one here.
Ven is here, but this is known by the Highland Ravens. Haddix teleports back forward. Fire Giant's down to half. Genetics push, pulled, and sent back, and Hurriwind's got a lockdown. Genetics couldn't press buttons for the last 5 seconds of his life. Now the Ravens have picked up where the Camelot Kings left off. But there's an initiation back in. Ven's got the kill on the Twig. Fire with the assist, and Barracuda adds a double. Now it's only the carries for the Camelot Kings. Scream finds a dive, and a 4-kill Fire Giant swing for the Highland Ravens.
What a terrible time to try and find a fight. I mean, Haddix goes and zones the rest of the Kings by himself. Variety and Genetics group up on the Fire Giant knockup. And Yark couldn't spend enough time in the sky. The Highland Ravens win that fight handedly. It's only big man Tings, and there's no way you try and defend this Phoenix. If Tings dies here, they could go for the end, so he's got to stay back and just try and do some poke damage.
Whoa.
What a swing for the Highland Ravens. One bird this early on, and it's not all Scream this time, right? That was the issue in game number 2, was that Bakasura had a lot of that farm. He had a lot of that presence. Very well spread out. Barracuda gets a ton of kills. Sits level 20. This X-Ball's absolutely swinging now.
Sure is. And that's the type of play, Trelly, that happened to the Ravens in game 2. Now there's a bit more nuance, a bit more back and forth, but a 4-kill swing this time results in a Fire Giant as well. And everyone gets it with a Phoenix. And so a similar mindset where the game really breaks open on what feels like one grouping of a fight. despite the Camelot Kings maybe feeling like they had the opening thread there. Now the Ravens playing a bit faster. Back to the Pyromancer, or the Primal Fury rather, they go. They got plenty of time, minute and a half. Variety's going to push out the Fire Minion waves, and so you're really setting the stage now. The Fire Minions might not find their way very quickly to the Camelot Kings' right side of the map. So if the Ravens want to siege, they're going to have to do it the old-fashioned way. A Runic Bomb and some gently applied pressure of their own.
Camelot Kings, though, certainly not out of this race. They've got plenty of damage. They've got Wave Clear. They've got Tank Shred, all of which makes for some good defenses, especially if Variety finishes Sigil, a big power spike in this current Vamana build. He's got to get back to base, though. Definitely wants to help his team towards this left side Phoenix, so Variety is going to head back. I'm wondering if Genetics is going to initiate the fight or just stay back and try and see if they can find poke. The issue I find with most of these teams is once they win the defense, they try and chase out of the Phoenix, but the Phoenix is the only place you're safe.
Tings got stunned, but
there it is, lasered that Phoenix.
Genetics has the shield. You're right. That's enough space. Oh, no. How costly is that from Variety? He's gone down 0-2 now. There's still a tier 2 tower in mid. 30 seconds left on this FG buff. A first FG of the game resulting in 3 Phoenixes is massive for the Highland Ravens. And unfortunately, it's come at the cost of the tanks of the Camelot Kings recently.
Twig?
Pick onto Genetics. Could have been a pick onto Twig. The last of this Phoenix. Should a Runic Bomb get used? Not necessary. And the Ravens completely open up the base of the Camelot Kings. 10,000 gold out of nowhere for the Highland Ravens. And that is the end of the FG buff as we speak. 3 Phoenixes down in a 10,000 gold lead in a game for first seed in the Order Division.
We don't even get to see if Genetics wanted to blink in or try and create some defense, because unfortunately Variety killed before he can go into Colossal Fury, and that's the end of the fight. I mean, if you can't get your Vamana ultimate off, you're not going to have any sort of backline damage. Your carries are free casting. I guess the enemy carries are free casting in this case, and the Ravens can do no wrong. Barracuda popped his ult and said, 3-4 auto attacks, I'm just going to laser this Phoenix down, no problem. And now all 3 birds are gone. Usually,
for a fight.
Yeah, usually this net's a fire giant, but the Highland Ravens want some blood.
The Ravens have not wanted to end a game in a conventional way here recently. Yark got to use his beads, he'll tumble away. Big man Tings, use the Aegis as well. Scream, take some poke damage in return. The Camelot Kings have survived the initial onslaught. And the timing of the fight might have made sense. Fire Giant spawns right now in a minute away from being enhanced. Enhanced Fire Giant with what will be 2 Phoenixes down. Should be a recipe for an end for the Highland Ravens, but all bets are off after game 2.
Captain Twig hiding at the cooldown buff right now, and Variety still sticking around. I'm wondering if this is A, to try and go for a fight, or B, trying to go for a sneaky steal. But it's not going to last long. The Camelot Kings have to fight now, or their base is going to get broken into, and it looks like the minions are already pouring through. They have to decide right now, are they going in? Are they looking to scrap?
Fire minions will deal a bit of damage to the Titan. Kings realizing that, dispersing out just a bit, but it's Captain Twig who's gone back. He's now been spotted. Fire Giant not immediately pulled, however, by the Highland Ravens, so Twig will have time to get back over to this side of the map. It's big man Tings holding on to that speed buff. A bit quicker on the Discordia. Captain Twig's got the other. So clearing the minions, yes, great. That's all fine and good, but another wave of minions making their way into your base. Variety's going to have to go back. He has TP, so he can reset here just as well. Runic Bomb in the back pocket of Hurriwind as the Fire Giant begun by the Highland Ravens. It's low, and it's confirmed by the Ravens. Barracuda gets a +1 onto Captain Twig. Deep in the back line, though, is Variety. But he's all on his own. He can't leave the rest of his team. Ravens cleanly. EFG. I believe EFG. It's 25 seconds after. So it was EFG and an additional kill. And the right side Phoenix left standing, but Twig still dead for 40. Ravens might be looking for an end. And they're looking for first seed.
It's all on Tings here. I mean, he's got hit at some big CC, a massive ultimate that's not even available. It's all about a good strife to try and keep these birds and that Titan alive. Genetics blinks in.
Genetics blinks in, but I bet he wishes he hadn't, because Venenu's got damage from above. The rest of the Ravens stepping forward. It's going to be miracle defense needed from the Camelot Kings. Variety goes Colossal Fury, Ven backpedals away. Far from easy right now for the Highland Ravens, but they've got damage and they've got health. And the Highland Ravens unseat the Camelot Kings and grab first seed.
I bet they wish they would have done it in 2, but they're just fine getting that 3rd game win. Massive plays throughout the entirety of the Highland Ravens here. Barracuda on the Xbalanque. We called it. Hey, maybe if he goes in split push, gets level 20, he could get a little bit more damage online, make a big impact, and that's exactly what he did. Ven on this Agni was looking unstoppable. I think Hurriwind took a lot of pressure in the early game. He was the main target of this aggression. But once he got some tank stats online, once he got that heroism, was able to stay in the front line as you would want from a Nox and just control so much space for his team.
I'm trying to think now. I don't want to pour onto the Kings here. Remember, they were undefeated at one point. It was the 2 undefeated teams we were talking about. Was that 4-0, I think the Kings were? And now they end their phase. So they start off their phase 4-0, end their phase at 5-5, 6-4, something like that. I mean, you lose.
It's 5-5.
The majority of the end of your games. So after starting 4-0, you lose 5 and win 1. That is brutal for the Camelot Kings. The opposite of that for the Highland Ravens. They end first seed. They get a bye there in Masters. Don't have to worry about playoffs. And what a side we had over in the Order division. And a 3-game set comes to a close with the Ravens on top of the Order side of things. That's it for Trelly and I on the desk. We'll break it down.
Yeah, that's right. The Highland Ravens. Remember, Gormaz, this is the team coming into the very beginning of the season. They were the last one drafted into a division. And now the first seed for the Order side. Highland Ravens with this performance get themselves their guaranteed trip to Masters. They don't have to go through the playoffs at all. They can sit by, coast for the next 3-4 weeks while they wait by for that Masters tournament. And what a performance by them here in this final game. I mean, there were moments where the Camelot Kings were able to fight back, keep this game even, but fight around the Fury and then that fight around the Fire Giant, specifically with Veneno, who's able to pump out so much damage on this Agni, really keeps things alive here for the Highland Ravens.
Honestly, look, man, I think it's something that they should be very, just proud of, the way that they ended this phase, the way that things have turned around. I mean, there's even a point you talk to them. It's very similar to when we would talk to the Warriors, where sometimes you'd say, like, hey, what's making this work? Why does it work? And they just say, no idea. You ask the Ravens, what is your style? Who is your team identity? What would you say it is? And they just go, I don't think we know yet. They've been figuring it out, though, and I think that this team is playing well. A lot of breakout moments in that, J-Mac. I mean, it's very, very close for a majority of the game. And you see little picks like that. That's where the difference are made, right? Yeah. That kill makes such a huge, huge difference for them. And a lot of the time, it's Hurry finding a lockdown, right? One of the things that you were maybe hoping to see the Geb counter just never came to fruition, and it set up so much. You get good damage from Barra, you get good kills and damage from Scream. I think that you really get to see a lot, and I think the big change-up, grabbing the Agni for Vin, but more importantly, taking that away from the Kings on the defense, that's one of the huge things in Game 2 that kept them going, versus this time, like, Discordia can still do a lot. Strife is much smaller than an Agni stun, right? So all of a sudden, you're having a very different conversation. It didn't feel like the Vamana got to pop off, especially considering what we've seen it do. And I think that's just from good control on the side of the Ravens to make sure that it wasn't able to grow as big, pun intended, as we've seen it do.
Yeah, the 18,000 damage is deceiving from Veneno, because a lot of that kind of backloaded during this fight and during this game specifically here. The whole of the Highland Ravens able to rally one final time up against the Camelot Kings. And in fact, 3 undying players, Haddock, Scream, and Veneno, without a single death this game. Barracuda 5-1-4, Hurriwind the 0-3-8 there. But I think you're right to say, this Geb that was last picked for the Camelot Kings, kind of picked as that potential Nox counter, really didn't get to come to fruition, because I think at that moment the Ravens realized, you know what, sure, yeah, Geb will Geb shield whoever is, but what if we just get the guy who could try and Geb shield instead? What if we just pick the Geb so he doesn't have anything going for him? And the Highland Ravens win out. They get first seed. We've got Scream standing by with Dave for our post-game interview.
Yeah, and Scream, we talked to Hurriwind prior to going into this set, and he brought up that the Ravens were the last pick team in general. Right after that kickoff tournament, you guys were drafted over to the Order side, I suppose. And now you end the phase on top of the Order side. Is that where your expectations were set from the beginning, despite maybe other teams' expectations not quite being there?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I think we're a really good team. Obviously, we're,
Right, of course.
I joined the team. So. But I think, it's just a little disrespectful from them. I mean, I think Hurry's been really motivated to come in and perform, and obviously I think I'm able to step up to the plate, and I think everybody's played fantastic. Maybe I've played the worst on my team, honestly.
But not after game one. Come on.
Oh, I mean, I had a really good set today for sure. My team put me in great spots today. But I think, I don't know, I just think everybody's been playing great, and, we're owning.
Are you happier to finish first seed or have an extra week where you don't come in and play any in the playoff games?
I don't really believe in that juju.
Sure.
It's, Zatman loves saying that. He's like, oh, I love going through play-ins or whatever. Yeah. He just thinks it warms you up. But I don't really believe in that. I'm fine to have a nice little week off.
Yeah, why not? Why not? If you will, although it's the one we don't want to talk about. Game 2, bit chaotic there. You nearly find the end. Your team rushes down. You're thinking you're getting the end. What do you think goes right or wrong in that moment? What did you guys see?
According to Neil, it was very close. It was good, very few execution things that we could have played perfectly or we could have not, and it could have been completely different. It was my call because they were trying to collapse on me, and I was like, oh, go win the game. I'll keep the Agni here. I don't know. It was probably a bad call because we could have just got fired, but I don't know.
We're splitting hairs.
It was just on me, I think. I should have let them decide. They were in the moment, and I just think that was, I spent the whole game shot calling our game, and I think that was just a bad call at the end right there.
Happens, doesn't matter. You win game 3 nonetheless. A big thread that I want to end with here. After what we saw in our last set, I think expectations for Vamana were really set, but it's something that you guys simply had an answer to. What is the answer to Vamana?
Yeah, well, Baskin Vamana is a little different.
That's fair.
And also, they have a tendency to not play Vamana solo in a lot of their drafts. They'll put a jungle. So we kind of just gambled the draft a little bit. I mean, it's not really a gamble versus them because they had no tendency to play it solo. So we were kind of just like, we'll go into draft, we'll do this. If they do that, it's like they're not really the most practiced on it, so we'll just play a game into it, play a comp that we think could deal with it, and I think we showed it off pretty well. You did. Scream, first seed over in the order side. We'll see you guys at Masters. We'll see the desk right now.
That's right. Back over to us here on the desk, and a nice little vacation for Scream and the rest of the Highland Ravens. They'll join the Oni Warriors immediately at Masters. Yep. Neither of those two teams now have to play their way up until that point to determine any of their kinds of seeding and whatnot. So it's just a nice little week off, as he says, for the Highland Ravens to kind of enjoy. But we still got a little bit more to go. Remember, we had a tie that actually ended up happening just earlier today in our second set. And because of that, we're moving that into Thursday. Normally we bring the pros in. We have a lot of fun, play some games, do some battle sounds, some tier lists, roll queue, all that kind of fun stuff with these guys. But right in the middle, that sandwich in the middle, between our roll queue and our waiting room, we're going to have that tiebreaker set. Styx, Ferryman, and Eldritch Towns are going to be playing on Thursday. So make sure you're tuning in Thursday if you want to see how those two teams end up finishing out. Remember, it's a battle for third seed between those two teams to kind of close things out. So, again, Thursday, May 11th. Be sure to tune in. We'll have full times and all that kind of stuff over on the Twitter page, SMITE Pros, to make sure you are following there. We can take a look, though, at our standings to see how everything is sort of finished out here, Gore. Because now Highland Ravens, a 7-3 performance by them, they've won out. They're done. They get a move on to Masters. Them, the Oni Warriors at 10-0, they go to Masters. Everybody else, at least except for the Ferrymen and the Eldritch Hounds, they're the only ones that have an official tiebreaker between them. This is the standings moving in towards the playoffs. Leviathan, second seed. Jade Dragons in that third spot. Gilded Gladiators, fourth. Camelot Kings solidify at least their second seed.
And just to reiterate, because I know I had someone message me on Twitter, so I want to make sure that it's out there. There's a lot of numbers that are similar for a lot of these teams. So you go from the set win-loss into the head-to-head matchups, into a plus-minus, which is essentially literally just how many games did you win, how many games did you lose, what's the difference between the two, right? So the Kings were far enough ahead that even a 2-1 loss, that gives them a 3 plus-minus, I think, at the end of this, right? They only go down by 1, and that's higher than either of the other two teams. That's why they're not involved in that tiebreaker, and it's just those two. And that makes things really interesting. It's the same reason that the Leviathans are ahead of the Dragons, right? The plus-minus just beats them out, and it saves them from having to play the extra game. Unfortunately for the Ferrymen and the Hounds, they're tied up to the note.
Yeah, it is sets, head-to-head, and their plus-minus. So winning the exact same amount of games over the course of everything. Now, we've been talking a lot about the playoffs for the teams that aren't the Ravens and the Oni Warriors. They've got to go to playoffs, and we've got the bracket ready for you guys so you can see how those matchups will go through, because we have to wait for that actual tiebreaker match to determine who's going to be playing up against the Gladiators and who's going to be playing up against the Jade Dragons. Remember, if you tune in Thursday, that will conclude who faces off there.
Yep.
Leviathans and Kings getting second. They get that first round bye in this bracket matchup there. And the big part of it, all of them best of 5 throughout the entire event.
2 best of 5s, 4 days in a row, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. A lot of really, I think, exciting Smite that's going to be seen. A lot of preparation that you're going to have to do. Big note is that whoever wins on Thursday, right, they come in, they play their tiebreaker game. Whoever wins that gets the Gladiators, right? That's the glory of being the higher seed then at that point, being 3rd seed. And so you have this opportunity to come in. Being said, looking back at it, the Gladiators are what kicked off the loss now that we've seen for the Kings. The reason that they're sitting in this part of the bracket as opposed to being undefeated maybe like the Warriors were is because of the Gladiators. So maybe that's a win for you. Maybe it's a little bit of a loss for you. I don't think there's winning really. We always talk about like the quote-unquote easier bracket, but there isn't one, man. Every single one of these teams we've seen take some really, really solid games. And even though, especially if you look towards the Chaos side, maybe the win-loss columns aren't looking too great over there compared to the orders, but I think that every single one of those teams has improved from what we saw, and the start of the phase was pretty rough for a few of them.
Yeah.
The end of the phase, and I think going into the playoffs, is going to be even more exciting because they've kind of got their hands on what they needed.
And I think the one thread that kind of follows through with every opponent we ask them, do you want to face off against this team, or do you rather face off against that team? The bottom line that always comes down, Gore, is that they say, it doesn't matter who we face. If we want to be the best, we got to be able to beat anybody, no matter what our competition is. So an exciting playoffs that's going to be happening in just about 2 weeks. Not 2 weeks from today. It's 2 weeks from Thursday that just recently happened. Make sure you tune in for the tiebreaker game between the Ferrymen and the Hounds on Thursday, happening right during our roll queue with the support players. But that's it for the brunt of the regular season. For the actual conclusion, again, tune in on Thursday. I've been J-Mac. That's Goremeister on behalf of us, casters, and everyone behind the scenes. Thank you for watching. We'll see you at the tiebreaker, and then we'll see you at playoffs.